please welcome my guest for today, Reiny. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome on in, Reiny. So happy to have you here. Happy I was able to get you away from Baldur's Gate, at least for a little bit.
Don't worry, I'll be going right back to it after this.
Oh, thank goodness. But obviously, most folks who are in chat right now are very clearly familiar with you, but for anyone who might not be, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Reiny. I'm a VTuber from the UK, and I stream on YouTube and Twitch alongside my Japanese sister Ojiki-chan. We're a package deal.
Yes, indeed, that you all actually had a very popular tweet recently because I actually think this is my first show since the debut of Holo Advent and Fuomoko, and obviously that being the first set of twins or, a joined account from HoloLive, and certainly not the first ever set of twin VTubers that we've seen, but certainly a rarity unto itself, and that for you and Ojiki, that you do indeed come as a package deal, and that I wish I could enjoy Ojiki's streams, but sadly I don't speak Japanese. But I'm sure that they're wonderful.
She's great. She does speak some English, so if you do want to swing by and say hi, she'll do her best to reply to you. Plus, I think it's adorable when she tries.
But again, so happy to have you here today. Hopefully it's not too oppressively hot where you are right now, that I know that the UK can get pretty bad in the summer, so hopefully you're staying cool.
It's okay. I'm fine. My PC is very much not fine, but we'll get through it.
We'll manage somehow. But yes, meanwhile, you have been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate that it came out just this week as of time of broadcast. I haven't actually played Baldur's Gate before. I've played Dungeons & Dragons for a while, and for whatever reason, Baldur's Gate is just a game that I missed. I didn't actually realize how much D&D was in it. That obviously Baldur's Gate is something from the Forgotten Realms, that it is from D&D lore. I did not know that they actually had full-on roles and stats, that it's basically just a video game version, a stand-up client module of D&D. And it's actually been really cool seeing people not only going through the very intensive character creation process, but I think it's a really cool on-ramp for folks who are into tabletop or trying to get into tabletop, because it shows the role and then all the modifiers. So for you and RPGs as a whole, where does it begin? Did you start with video game RPGs, then get into tabletop, then video games?
I think for me, it started off with video games. I definitely remember sitting on my parents' lap when I was a baby and playing Baldur's Gate on the big clunky, big old PC. And then I think from there, it went into, I did a little bit of tabletop, but it's mostly been video games for me.
Yes, and it's been fun. I've been lurking around in your streams as you've been playing, and I won't get into spoilers since the game is so new, but let's just say you met a demoness yesterday and were quite enamored.
No? What gave you that impression? Look, the character design in Baldur's Gate 3 is chef's kiss, impeccable.
It is very good, and that everything from the character creation to just the NPCs that are set up in the world are very, very good. And it's just from watching it, it's something that has made me say, okay, maybe I need to get into Baldur's Gate. I don't know if I have time to get into something as big as Baldur's Gate. Oh my goodness! Mistress Doom! Welcome on in, Raiders. Dog Champ Raid indeed. Yes, hello, everyone. You actually just got here at the start of the show, so very good timing. Welcome on in. This is Vtuber Talk. I'm Jay. I'm talking with Reiny, so I know you just introduced yourself, but we now have a whole bunch of new folks in, so if you could introduce yourself once more for us.
Hello, everyone. My name, once again, is Reiny. I'm from the UK. I stream on YouTube and Twitch, and I share channels with my sister Ojiki-chan. We are a duo, we're a team, we do stuff together.
Yay! Yes, you caught us just at the start of the show. We were starting off with some talk of Baldur's Gate and RPGs. For anyone who might not be familiar with Mistress Doom, she does a lot of fantastic different content, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! She helps run a lot of different tournaments and events. Had her on a while back and actually hosted a game show with her recent, or I suppose it has been actually a couple months. Time is weird, but definitely do check out Mr. Doom if you haven't already, and welcome on in, Raiders. Doom, I hope you had a good stream. Please do, as always, take care of yourself. If you need to go get some water, get some food, I will see you around, but definitely looking forward to the next time that we can collaborate. We were talking just recently, actually, about some plans for the future, so stay tuned for that.
Ooh.
But back to you, Reiny. So you mentioned that you actually grew up playing this game, or at least the older versions of Baldur's Gate, with your parents. I wish that my parents were gamers, that my parents were not really opposed to games or, trying to keep me from playing games, but neither of them were really into it. So I don't actually have any memories like that. So I think it's really cool that you were able to have that growing up and be able to, like you said, sit on your parents' lap and watch them play. So do you have any particular memories of learning, or just was it something that you were able to pick up? Was it really complex to you at first, anything like that?
I mostly remember my parents really being into like old retro point and click adventure games like King's Quest and
Mm.
Torrens Passage, like all the old Sierra games and the old LucasArts games, all of those. So, yeah, I recently rediscovered those because you can get them on GOG. So I've been playing those on stream and rediscovering and re-remembering all those old 90s retro point and click games.
Ah,
Oh God,
very
it
nice.
feels painful to say retro now. It's only the
Yeah,
90s.
it's like,
God.
yeah, but it's just, it's not that old. It's, oh gosh, you start counting and you realize, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaming console generations back, or however many now, and that, eh, oh yeah, the Wii will be 20 years old. Oh god.
No, don't say that.
I remember my mother was kind enough to take me to get a Wii on launch day, and that we sat outside. It was November, so it was pretty cold. It wasn't too bad, but we were in jackets, and that we didn't know how much stock the different places were going to have, and we actually got lucky that we wound up at a Toys R Us that happened to have a pretty good number coming in. So it is a very fond memory, but thing that's 20 years old is
20 years ago. Painful. Oh, I don't want to think about it.
Nope. So you start off watching your parents play Baldur's Gate. Were there any other RPGs that were particularly formative for you, whether they be video games, tabletop, or anything in between?
I can't recall any kind of RPG games that we used to play as like a family, but I do vividly remember one day um, I saw an advert for Skyrim.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, "Wow, this looks amazing! This looks incredible!" But I didn't have like a console or anything at the time, so I asked my mom, "Okay, mom, for my birthday, I really want Skyrim. If you get the game for me, I will buy the console." And she's like, "I'll do you one better. I'll buy the game for you, and we can go halves on the console." So I got the console
Oh my
and
gosh, that's so
Skyrim
good.
on launch day. I know, I was so happy.
Oh, I never even thought of that as sort of a fringe benefit of having a parent who's into gaming, that they might be like, okay, I just want to play this myself, so I'll pay for some portion of it, not because it's necessarily them going out of their way to get a gift for you or anything for a special occasion, but just that they know they're going to play it and use it and enjoy it. So they're willing to do that. And goodness knows my parents, like I said, they weren't opposed to me having video games, and I did get my first console as a birthday present, but pretty much anything after that was me spending my own money, and they certainly weren't going to be using it. Actually, no, wait. There was one. This just made me remember. There was one time that I came home from school, and my mom looked really upset, and she said, I saw that you were really enjoying the Sonic game that you were playing, so I tried booting up the GameCube to play it, and I think I deleted your save file.
Oh,
And she had. Now,
oh,
fortunately, I was much more upset because the Sonic Adventure 2 had the Chow Garden, and I put a lot of hours in the Chow Garden. But I
no.
realized the Chow Garden data is saved separately from the main game data. So while I had to go back, stage 1 city escape and everything, I still had my chow. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, this could have been worse. And I think I had a friend come over and copied their main game data because I had already beaten the main game at that point, so it really didn't matter. But yeah, that was the one time, and I think after that, she never really tried to touch any of my consoles or play any of my games ever again because she felt so bad that the one time she tried to play, she had deleted my save file.
Thankfully, that hasn't happened to me yet.
Yeah, you're probably safer that since your parents are gamers, that they're going to be a bit more aware of how they navigate through the UI. Also, Andy F18, Sasithic, and Sonuarte, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that properly. Thank you so much for the follows. So you wound up getting Skyrim, and obviously one of the most, I would go as far as saying it's one of the most iconic RPGs to hit consoles, and certainly one of the most ported, that it's basically a meme at this point that, what can't run Doom and what hasn't had Skyrim ported to it.
Yep. It was definitely something that really got me into the RPG genre. From then on, I was pretty much only obsessed with any game that had dragons in it. I played it.
Have you found yourself tending toward a particular class or a play style, or do you just try a lot of different ones every time you start a new game?
I'm definitely a ranger type, 100%. I like to stay at the back and just fire arrows at people. I don't like to get up close and personal.
There's a certain comfort and safety of, I know I am far out of range, you can't touch me, and as long as I'm smart about how I approach you, 9 times out of 10, at least conceptually, you shouldn't be able to get to me, and therefore I am safe, even if I am squishy.
Yep, exactly.
And then the just primal fear of, oh my gosh, you're very quick, you shouldn't be able to get me, why are you getting close to me, get away, get away, get away.
Yep, get away, get away. I can't shoot my arrows when you're this close.
Yeah, that I definitely, at least initially, when I started playing both tabletop and video game RPGs, did enjoy being at a relative range that, magic is always something that has appealed to me, so I was much more likely to go wizard or something as opposed to barbarian or a melee class. I found myself getting into more melee and tanky classes just sort of by necessity, because when I'm playing with others, I'll usually design my character to just fit whatever role is needed most. I'm not very creative when it comes to character creation, so I let everyone else make what they want to make and then figure out what the party needs from that. And sometimes they need a paladin, so I've just gotten used to, okay, it was actually the first time I played a paladin, it took me a couple sessions to get in the mindset of, oh no, wait, I'm not supposed to be shying away. I'm supposed to run in head first and let a whole bunch of enemies target me. That's my job now.
Yeah, that's definitely not for me. I panicked too hard.
No, and it definitely took a while for me to acclimate to that as well, especially after having played ranged characters, squishy characters for so long. So, yeah. But I was able to eventually get there, but it's an entirely different mindset.
I did find that even with Magic, I didn't play Magic at all when I played Skyrim because I just could not get my head around it, but it's much more easy, I would say, in turn-based games to kind of do a bit more magic because you can really take your time to read and plan. And but, like with Skyrim, it was like, quick, cast a spell, oh god!
Yep, just sort of, all right, I know that this spell is powerful and I'm just going to keep tapping that button as it goes through its cooldown to keep spamming it however quickly I can.
Yep.
For Baldur's Gate, I know that there's the potential to do multiplayer campaigns and that they are basically enabling it to be, like I said, sort of a not virtual reality campaign, but that you're able to have it feel like sort of almost an AIDM, I suppose, in a way. Perhaps not AI in the sense of, it's being fully generated, that they have the script and, all right, this is how the module, I suppose, is going to go. But I think it's cool that players really have that option.
I think so far they've done a really, really good job of, no matter what character you choose, what class you choose, what race you go for, there will always be a different option every time you you speak to someone.
Hmm.
So it can be really fun to help you out in terms of like storytelling if you're not really familiar with like a race, then it will give you an option like this is what you should pick if you're this race, but you don't have to pick it. It just, it's
Yeah,
like a unique conversation every time. It's really cool.
that it will not quite handhold you, but it will clue you in, nudge you of, all right, this would be a perhaps normal response. This is something that might be a bit more unique to you, something a bit more expected. But here are some options if you want to be particularly aggressive or if you're trying to be super diplomatic, and that it provides those options while also not making it too mysterious of what those options will entail.
Exactly. And it kind of makes for a bit more of a fun experience if you've already had this conversation before and you're starting a new game with a new character, then you can, you're having the same conversation, but it pans out completely differently.
Mm. When it comes to RPGs, do you find that you end up investing a lot in your personal lore as a character? Do you usually put a lot of thought into your backstory, or do you mostly focus on the mechanics, or perhaps a bit of both?
I try to put a lot of thought into my backstory. Um, I'm trying to learn how to role play a bit better, because usually I just pick the responses that align with my personal morals, I guess.
Hmm.
But which can be kind of difficult. Like it's fine for like a first playthrough, but if you really want to role play as like an evil character, it can be really difficult to be like,
Yeah,
oh,
just
oh, I don't want to do that. That's so
it's like,
mean.
no, I want to be nice. I want people to like me. I'm trying to not make enemies, but yeah, that's the whole point of role playing, and that similar to me having some difficulty simply getting into really the mechanical mindset of, okay, I'm supposed to be on the front lines and not the back lines, and getting into the character mindset of, okay, I'm supposed to be an asshole. I'm supposed to be incredibly selfish. I'm supposed to be trying to harm others, that it can feel unnatural and you sort of have to force yourself into it, and that it hopefully as you go through the game will become more natural and just more fun, because that's the whole point of role playing. But it's definitely something that when you're first starting out is going to just feel unnatural.
Yeah. So I think what I'm doing with Baldur's Gate is I've got my stream campaign that's very memey. I play like a kind of morally ambiguous character. I choose the responses that I won't necessarily would choose myself, but it's what chat wants. And then
Hmm.
I have another campaign running alongside it, which is like, the one that I want to
For
play, and it's
you.
the choices that I want to make, yeah. And then I just don't stream it.
Yeah. I think that's good, and that a fair number of people take that approach with games, especially RPGs, where you're able to have a very different experience in different playthroughs and just say, okay, this one's for me. I'm going to do exactly what I want here. And then for whenever I'm streaming, entertaining, that I will be either a bit crazier, or also Baldur's Gate just has a very deep Twitch integration set of tools, and that folks are able to actually vote on things and have a real influence on what happens in the game. So I think it's a very practical method that you're taking here of just have two separate ones, and it's just going to make it easier and allow you to have these two very different but hopefully both very fun experiences with the game.
Yeah, I like that they added those Twitch integration. It's quite fun.
Yeah, that's been one of the really cool things to watch these past couple of years of Twitch integrations becoming more and more sophisticated, because it started out being just a couple simple little tools here and there that you might be able to vote on something, and that even that frankly is still really cool. Like, you rewind the clocks 10 years, the whole idea of, well, Twitch is only about 10 years old itself, really, that it's still in its very very early years in a relative sense, and just having something as simple as chat voting was pretty big. But now we're getting these full-on overlays where you can actually click and choose and have these real impacts, and I'm really excited to see how developers start not only using those tools but developing even further ones from here.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying any game that has Twitch integration, even if it's just like, they put chat's name as like a character. That's still
Yeah.
super fun to me.
Yeah, and that's really cool as a viewer, as someone in chat, that having that sort of personal connection there. I know that was a pretty big thing with Cult of the Lamb. I'm not sure if there's anything to that effect
Mm.
that's available in Baldur's Gate, but whether it be something like having the name or the more tangible influence, that there's all types of really cool things. And like I said, I'm wondering where we're going to go from here in terms of that technology.
Yes, yeah. Exciting times.
If you had the ability to code anything in terms of Twitch integration, is there something that you're hoping to see, whether it be, for Baldur's Gate or any other type of game out there?
Um. Hmm. Like I said, I really like just when like chat gets to become like an NPC and then you can like interact with them is always really funny. But I
Mhm.
also really like the kind of where chat can take control and just like move a character around just by typing up, down, left, right.
Yeah, just
'Cause
Twitch plays Pokemon, but with NPCs.
yeah, exactly.
Really only hit me mid-sentence there of, I guess Twitch plays Pokemon was one of the first Twitch integrations, even if it wasn't made by a games developer, that was one of the first times that Twitch chat was able to tangibly influence a game, and that's part of why Twitch plays Pokemon became so crazy big for those first couple of months.
Mm.
ArkZ1, I messing with the streamer, yes, and just being able to add to the fun or to the chaos or both is something that is very appealing, certainly.
It certainly makes for good content. So
Yes.
I'll tolerate it for now.
Yes. Have you had any particularly memorable moments so far? That I know it's only been a couple of days, but anything that has really stood out to you of Twitch or chat taking the reins and going in a direction that you didn't necessarily expect, or even if you did expect, that it just played out in a way that you didn't?
Yeah, no, there is one scenario that immediately comes to mind.
Hmm.
I don't know how much spoilers it is. It's like right at the start of the game, so like
If
10
it's
minutes
at the
in,
start, I think that's
you'll
fine.
yeah, you'll come across it. But like there's like a there's like a dead mind flayer on the ground. He's like an octopus looking dude.
Ah,
And
yes.
you go up to him. Chat's like, kiss the mind flayer, kiss the mind. And they would not let me leave until I kissed the mind flayer. And of course, it's like instant death. So I had to reload anyway. And then they're like,
Oh
do
my
it
gosh.
again.
I don't know
Like,
what I'm more impressed with. The fact that I think what I'm most impressed with is the game allowed this action, and that the programmers said, all right, there is a non-zero chance of someone trying to kiss this mind flayer, and that we have a prepared response, that it's not just, back in the day with a lot of text RPGs, that they would have a very select few things that would do something, and that if you tried to do an action that was not in that subset, it would just return automatically, you can't do that, or you attempt and you fail, that it would have a way to hand wave and say, sorry, we didn't write anything for that. But that we're at the point where either they technologically were like, okay, this is some sort of physical interaction, and that any attempt to physically interact with this mind flayer will result in death. Or if they actually went as deep down in code to specifically say, all right, kiss is going to be die, but maybe if you poke it with your sword, you won't die. And that there was some sort of prepared response there.
it's just so funny to me that it gives you like 3 chances to change your
Oh, and
mind.
it tries to dissuade you?
It's like
It's like, are
it's
you
like,
sure?
are you sure?
Do you
You could pull away, you can change your mind, and then you
do
go
you
for it
really
again. It's
want
like,
to
are you
do that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then like the third time, it's finally like, okay, fine, you die.
Alrighty, well, and I guess that's what a good DM should do, especially for early levels. That if this were late game, that all right, you might be expected to know better, but that's a pretty smart thing to do, especially if there's a newer player, because it's not going to be a very good gameplay experience if I'm brand new to this game and I see this thing like, oh, I want to be silly, and then I say kiss and oh, I'm dead. What the heck? And the little nudge of, are you sure you want to do that? you might not want to do that is probably something that newer players do appreciate, whereas you probably knew full well as you were giving those additional approvals, like, oh, this is not going to end well.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully the game does autosave before you have this interaction.
Oh,
So
that's good. That's good.
it's kind of mandatory because, like, if you do take that option, you will die, and so you have no choice but to reload at the last save.
Mhm. Have you ever done any DMing yourself in terms of whether it be D&D or any other RPGs?
No, but I want to. I was recently gifted a Dungeons and Dragons like starter kit with like a starter campaign, and I'd love to like try it out with chat one day. But I've never DM'd before, so I have no
Mm.
idea what to do.
I only ever DM'd a single one-shot with friends a while back, and it was fun for the one-shot, but I think I do enjoy more so being a player. That it's always a challenge to find a good DM and just to find a play group if you're going to be playing with folks IRL or, at least in real time, even if it's virtually. That my campaign group has been virtual since 2020 for pretty obvious reasons, but we've kept it virtual just because it wound up being more convenient for folks than having everybody go out of their way to meet up once per week. So, but I've also had some swing and misses with playgroup formation, shall we say.
Oh,
Fortunately, nothing like too crazy bad, nothing serious drama-wise, but just sometimes players don't necessarily click together, and sometimes you do.
yeah. I've only ever had like one tabletop experience with a group, so but like I imagine that like every D&D group always has that one person who's like a little bit weird,
It can
does things a
happen,
little bit differently.
and I suppose to be fair, most of my bad experiences come in the form of Adventurers League experiences, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but for anyone who in chat who might not be, Adventurers League is basically Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes D&D. It is their public play league slash organized play structure where if you go to a local game store that has Adventurers League, that you can just bring a character and that you can be placed with a group, and that there are
Oh,
certain
fun.
standards of, okay, if you are going to an Adventurers League thing, that you should be building a character to this level with this specification. That way people go in with equal resources, and that people who might not have a play group are able to get paired up and just play the game without having to then sit down and worry about, okay, is everyone on the same page? Has everyone built to the proper specifications, that they have these specs in advance? And that's a really good thing for new players and for players who don't have a play group. But it also means you're being placed with randos. And I had a group where most of the table we had already played together, but that there was like 2 seats at our table that would just be rotating with different people in Adventurers League. And after a few too many instances of randos that were not particularly great to play with, we decided to just move our game to somebody's house and have it be private, because we're like, we all get along, we know what's up, we're having a good time together, and we're done with wild cards at this point.
That's fair enough. I would imagine it's the same with like online lobby matching. You never know who you're gonna get.
Oh yeah. There Yoshi 2 D&D ASMR rules reading stream. Honestly, that's something I look at and I say, someone has to have done that before, right? Because we've had ASMR just book reading, and there's sort of a meme of reading the phone book, or just what is the most mundane thing that I could see somebody doing that. I'm not sure if that's something to your particular taste, Reiny, but I'm sure that you could find someone that would want to do that.
I mean, it's not unheard of for me. I recently got a I recently did an ASMR stream where I read the Skyrim library, like 1st edition and 2nd edition, which is like reading stories from the Skyrim library, but in ASMR.
Well, there you go. And it's the type of thing that D&D rulebooks, I think, have gotten a lot more approachable. That's been one of the big things, that for all the different versions they've done over the years, that D&D for a very long time was scary for people to approach, and even now is kind of scary for people to approach. But I think part of the reason the game has grown as much as it has is because they've found ways to make it much more approachable. And I think that in a lot of ways, I don't necessarily think it's sneaky to say that Baldur's Gate is an on-ramp for D&D, but I think Baldur's Gate is an on-ramp for D&D.
I think it is. I think a lot of people will pick up Baldur's Gate based on just how like sheer popularity it's had the past few days, and then they'll be like, "Hey, this is super fun! Oh my god, wait, I can play it like and make my own story with people, with friends. Let's
Like,
go!"
wait,
And then
I
you
can
get
just do fanfic of this?
it is basically
That what is every homebrew campaign if not fanfic?
this is true. This is true. Didn't think of it that way before. That's gonna attract a lot of people, I think.
I think that's what has attracted a lot of people in the past, but yes. Do you have any particular methods that you use in terms of your own character creation? I mentioned that I'm really uncreative, so I'll just sort of use the restrictions of, all right, what is everybody else doing? Figure out what the party needs and build to those ends. When you make a character, do you usually start either with the character's concept, or are you usually saying, okay, I want to build this type of character with these types of abilities? Have you found that you just end up in the mood for a certain type of thing, or do you have any real structure to your approach?
I think, like I said, I'm hugely like set in my comfort zone, so I usually go for the same class every time. But I'm very much a visual person, so if someone has like really cool armor, then I'll try my best to like fit my character into that mold so that I can have a character with like the sickest armor. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to be a bit more creative and step out of my comfort zone when I create characters. But I do spend a lot of time on character creation, especially like appearance. That's really important to me.
You did spend a while on your character creation the other day.
It was only
Well, to be fair, that you spent a while, but in your defense, I feel like these are the types of games where everyone is going to spend a while. That most of the people that I have tuned into over the past couple of days that are playing Baldur's Gate are going to spend minimum 45 minutes, if not an hour, 2 hours on character creation. So yes, you spent a while, but that's not to say that you spent necessarily more than average. That's part of the game, part of the experience, being able to really take your time. And that your design, you made basically edgy punk goth.
Yeah, my streaming campaign character is an emo bard called Ember Darkflame. She has piercings and hair covering her eyes. She's all broody and moody. She likes to tell people that she has a tragic backstory where both her parents died, but actually she comes from a very noble household.
Oh, yes,
and
that's
her
right.
her real name is Sharon.
It's not a phase, Mom.
Yes, she's just going around playing like emo songs on her lute.
I appreciate that design.
It's a bit too close to home.
And the fact that you put in that extra bit of thought of, okay, I'm not just picking the class and then the different subclass and everything, but sort of, even if you're not able to play it out in super detail, that you're able to have that as a baseline, and then as you go through the game, that you have that in the back of your mind of, okay, what are the decisions that this character would make based on this background, that perhaps the fact that she has this sheltered upbringing and is really just being a poser, trying to pretend that she's super traumatized and everything, means that she would make these perhaps awkward decisions in trying to be emo and edgy, but in actuality is just completely missing the mark.
So
But she
far, it
thinks
has
she's
kind of
doing
been
it.
like that. Yeah, it has like been like that unintentionally, because once again, I'm slipping back into what would I actually choose. But then it just kind of goes into the character, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, she's pretending to be
That
edgy, but actually she doesn't really want to
Mhm.
fight.
So perhaps you actually did design it to yourself without meaning to.
No! It's not a phase.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you and others play it. That I think there's going to be a lot of fun stories that come out of that. Do you have any favorite stories in terms of really any RPG other than Baldur's Gate right now, whether it be a tabletop campaign or something in Skyrim, perhaps?
I think something that I always kind of gravitate to in RPG games, especially, is like if there's like a romance option.
Mm,
So
go
I
on.
so even though like I'm trying my best to like stick to the character and stick to the story, part of what's going on in my head is like if I pick this option, will my romance interest be annoyed with me? So, I did that a lot in like Dragon's Dogma and stuff.
Well, that's a very human and very normal, frankly, mindset of just, all right, there's this person I care about. What will they think of my actions? Will I do something that upsets this person that I care about? I'm going to, generally speaking, try to not upset the person that I care about. That's how people work.
Yep. And it's the same in Pathfinder. Like, I latch onto someone I really like, and I'm like, okay, my entire story is based around not upsetting this person now, because I want to see how our future together looks.
Aww. But that's part of the fun of it, that you really can have that romance-focused path, or you can take a very individualistic path, or really anything in between. That's the whole appeal, really, of role-playing games, that you get to play the role that you want.
Yep, exactly. So right now, in Baldur's Gate, Astarion is my goal.
Yeah, Dario, she's asked it. How many times did you romance Astarion so far?
I will say that I think I am doing better at romancing Astarion on my mini stream playthrough than I am currently on my private personal
Oh,
playthrough.
interesting.
Yeah, so I must have slipped up somewhere or
Yeah.
something or missed something because it's not going as well. I
Or
mean,
maybe
it's
chat
going.
Or maybe chat wants to romance them as much as you do, and that they are helping you for once.
I think chat does want to know. Chat wants to know.
Another piece of sort of streaming or streaming adjacent technology that's been really interesting to see, and that I know they have it in Baldur's Gate, is that they have stream safety toggles, in the sense of you can make sure that certain scenes don't end up breaking Twitch TOS, and that you can just have that toggle on, whether it be for violence or nudity or other things, but that developers are now actually developing with the mindset of, okay, is someone going to be, or what if someone streams this? Because you just have to assume nowadays someone is going to stream this, and that if you make it so that your game is not going to be something that you can stream on YouTube and Twitch, that's going to hinder your game. That's going to make it so, one, folks that might want to experiment with it, who might not have bought it, but would buy it for content, if they aren't going to buy it, that's lost sales. Or at the very least, just streaming is a big part of game marketing at this point in time. Simply having your game be played on Twitch, whether it's sponsored or not, is a form of marketing. And if you cut that off as an avenue completely, that's not going to do you any favors. So people are developing now with the mindset of, okay, let's have these options to make sure that we're not breaking TOS or anything, but also we want to develop a game that does have all this, and that if we want to show something explicit or something sexual, that we can do that and still have that in our game, that we're not going to, censor ourselves or limit ourselves developmentally, but that we can also make sure that we can sort of have our cake and eat it too if people want to stream it.
I do appreciate that. I mean, I knew ahead of time that there would be some nudity because I watched like the pre-release live stream that they did. And so like I was fully aware that there would be a streamer safe option going into it. So I did make sure before I started the game to make sure all of my stream save options were toggled. But then I found out after I finished my first stream that some of the top clips on Twitch are people realizing that there is just full frontal nudity, and they
Uh-oh.
just like, yeah, and they just like have it up, and Twitch is like, doesn't seem to care.
Mm, I wonder if they're going to be a bit more forgiving, perhaps during these first couple of days when something is released and people might not be aware that there is that toggle available, or if they just sort of wind up with it there for a moment, that they'll probably be more lenient, perhaps give a warning or just say, hey, you know, we've taken this stream down. You're not banned. Don't do it again. But then, you know, obviously this is pure speculation on my part, but it'll be interesting of, you know, does that start to become a bit more stringent over time? Will they start to expect streamers to be aware of that, whether it be for Baldur's Gate in specific or just games across the board? That is there going to be this game that has these toggles, and if you forget your toggle, that you're going to be in deep trouble?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's true, but I was told that like if the nudity is not the main focus of the content, then it's fine. But frankly, with Twitch banning VTubers left and right, that's not
Better
something I
safe
want to
than
risk.
sorry. Yeah, yeah. And certainly, it feels like we've gotten to a more stable place in terms of Twitch and VTubers. That there was certainly a rash of people getting banned for models like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But I feel like you don't see as many instances of that nowadays, now that Twitch has sort of become more aware, and that also just VTubers have become more aware of, all right, what is the line? What are the limits? And that at least for now, things to be pretty stable.
Definitely nowadays, VTubers, when they design a new model for themselves, they are designing like with Twitch and YouTube and other platforms like rules and guidelines in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a few VTubers being like, okay, and here's my Twitch safe toggle, and here's my Bilibili safe toggle, and here's my YouTube safe toggle, because each platform has their own different rules about how
Yep.
much skin you can show, and so like VTubers are having those options built in just in case.
Yep. And that is something like, all right, on Twitter, where I'm able to have this explicit filter that here's where you can see everything. And that's, you know, one of the benefits of being able to be a VTuber, that you're able to have those toggles, and that you're able to switch around with the click of a button, as opposed to having to actually go through and change a lot of things IRL for any given platform. So that's one, and it's, you know, just one of the many tools that VTubers have at their disposal. And that, speaking of tools, you in particular are not only creative, but that you go out of your way to incorporate as many tools as possible in your content, both with your live 2D and with your 3D models. I suppose, what really started your fascination and enjoyment of using all these different tools? Was it seeing somebody else have them, or have you always had an enjoyment of this type of tool set?
I think it all started kind of like when, you know, you see other streamers, you see like streamers who are not VTubers, like very easily incorporating these tools into their streams, and you're like, okay, that's great, but how can I do that as a 2D anime girl and make it work? And that's part of the fun for me. I like to look at what VTubers can't currently do and what like non-VTubers can do, and make it work in a creative way.
Yeah, and that's actually a very interesting mindset, because there's a lot of things that VTubers can do that, you know, facecam streamers can't. That facecam streamers can't ignore the laws of physics on a whim. Facecam streamers can't change their outfits with the click of a button. So you're not just looking at what are the things that VTubers can do that facecam streamers can't, but that you are actually taking the inverse of, all right, what can they do that I can't, and how can I make that list smaller?
Yeah, it's super. That's Like it's super fun for me. That's kind of the big reason why I love being a VTuber so much. Is just the creative problem solving that comes along with it.
Do you have any particularly proud moments of finding a way to really make that list smaller of something that you realize, wait a minute, nobody's done this before, but facecam streamers can do it, and being able to perhaps pioneer a bit?
Um, Probably my treadmill stream was pretty it was pretty out there for me. I was definitely like looking at other streamers and being like, okay, so you see these streamers and they are streaming themselves at the gym. Like they will just set up a camera, they will just do a workout at the gym. And I was like, that's really cool. I obviously can't do that because I'm an anime girl. How can I make that work? And so my community very generously funded a treadmill for me. And
Oh,
so
they funded the treadmill. Okay,
they
then.
funded the treadmill for me to make this work. And so I hauled this treadmill up into my office. I plugged everything in. I then used my all of my VR trackers and attached them all over myself. And I did a treadmill walking stream in full 3D tracking. And it was really funny.
I remember seeing you post about that stream, and I think I tuned in for a little bit. I didn't realize that they had funded the treadmill, and I guess, did you just find a treadmill model to put into VR chat or into your 3D environment and just make sure that your tracking positioning put you on top of it?
So the treadmill wasn't actually visible in 3D. It was kind of more of the illusion of like walking down a long hallway. So I had
Mm.
like an animation going in the background to make it look like when I was walking, I was like walking down a hallway. Um, but I probably could like proper put a like a treadmill prop in fairly easily and it would be fine. But yeah, it was it's pretty out there stream.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I remember earlier in the year, I think it was earlier this year, that you had a pool tax stream.
Yeah.
And wasn't necessarily, I would think, it probably wasn't very complex technologically, that it was really just, a 3D VR chat stream where you were in a pool, but that you were in real life doing your taxes, and that you had a model of a laptop floating in a little inner tube in front of you in the pool, that you actually set up this pool office environment effectively. So you committed to the bit. This wasn't just, all right, I'm in a pool, and then you might hear some typing in the background, that you actually had the full setup.
Yeah, I mean, I once again I was inspired by like the pool Twitch streamers and them
Hmm.
just like hanging out in their pool in their swimsuits, like talking to chat, and I was like, man, I really want to do that, but also my taxes are due. So, so in order to prevent putting off my taxes any longer, I was like, okay, well, I'll do the taxes in the pool, I guess.
I mean,
It turned
that's
into
really
content.
creative. That just obviously going with the pool scenario is going above and beyond, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people just doing just chatting streams while doing their taxes of, okay, well, I need to do this, and most of it is pretty mundane. It's not that complex, and that if you don't have somebody doing all that for you, that, all right, might as well just be live while I'm doing it, that I'm obviously not going to be sharing my screen, and taxes aren't something where you necessarily need to say aloud, okay, so I did this, that, the other, and I need to enter in my bank account XYZ123, that you can still do that and just glance at chat every so often.
Yep, it worked out really well. I was really happy with it, and it kind of, made me realize that it doesn't really matter what you're doing on stream, as long as you like make it engaging somehow. You
Hmm.
could be doing your taxes, and people will still show up.
Yeah. That if you have the personality, if you have the engagement, if you just have fun, that it can be something as mundane as doing taxes. That there is the whole, people have made grass growing simulator, paint drying simulator, that they have gone to the logical conclusion and extreme of what is the most boring thing possible that we can develop, and that people will play it, or people will not only play it, but play it on stream.
Yep, exactly. So it kind of gives me some inspiration for other mundane things that I could do.
Mm. When it comes to 3D space in particular, that you did a lot of VR chat prior to VTubing, so that's always been a space, I suppose, literally and metaphorically, that has been familiar to you, and that you do a lot of streams where you're not only using VR chat as your environment, but having a lot of different toggles for everything from outfits to different props that you use. Are there any props or outfits that have been particularly special finds, or something that you saw and realized, oh, wait, I can use this either just in a way that I really enjoy, or maybe in a way that isn't perhaps intuitive, and just being able to use things in different ways?
Thing is, I'm a bit of a booth addict, which is where I buy all my outfits from.
Mhm.
I love it on booth. My entire salary from VTubing every month goes straight into outfits on booth.
Well,
So
remember, at that point, it's a business expense. It's a write-off when it comes to
exactly,
taxes, so
exactly. As soon as I stream with it, it's a business expense.
mhm.
So, but not all of the outfits will be made for my model, so I do have to be a little bit sneaky and like fiddle things around in 3D and in Unity and in Blender
Mm.
and stuff. So that's always a struggle. But I think probably my favorite outfit is one that I picked up fairly recently, is the cheerleading outfit that I got. I only picked it up like a few weeks ago, but if you want instant serotonin boost, get yourself some cheerleader pom-poms and wave them around, because that shit is so much fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing you do that stream, and just that it's something that translates to 3D very nicely, because it has the physics of the pom-poms of just, you move your hands around, you can see the little ribbons on them flowing and moving from side to side, that they aren't these static props, that they have the physics. And it's just very fun, and that you can do a lot of silly things. And there was a good clip that you have and posted on Twitter where you were starting to do a cheer and spelling things out. And then you realized very quickly after you had the first letter, oops.
Yeah. I
Note to self, don't try and do cheerleading with any word that starts with the fourth letter of the alphabet.
you could see just how quickly my expression changed
That's
in that
that's one of the
clip.
other great things about good facial tracking, of the moments of realization, the epiphanies, just seeing people's eyes widen. Oh no.
Oh, that I can promise you that was not intentional.
Still a very good moment, and very well captured. Are there any outfits that you haven't found that you're sort of hoping, okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for this on booth, or perhaps a search term where it doesn't return anything, but you're hoping someday that when you search for this, that there will be something there?
To be honest, you will be hard pressed to find something that isn't on booth.
Fair.
If you can think of it, you can probably find it. Someone has probably already made it. So it's more the case of, if is there anything that I've seen on booth and I'm like, hey, I didn't think of that about that before. That's really cool. Maybe I'll grab it and have some fun with it. And that is
Yeah,
what
well, in that
fuels
case,
the
is there anything that
creativity.
you found that was unexpected, that you just stumbled across and like, oh my gosh, how did I not think of that?
There's like a nun costume but it's a little bit sexy, so I'm like umming and ahhing about whether or not I should
Like,
get it.
yeah,
I
and
mean, I'm sure
that's the other thing
chat.
of, we talk about Twitch and YouTube TOS of just that if you are making your own model, or you're commissioning a model, and an artist is aware of Twitch and YouTube TOS, that you're going to develop around that. But when you just find something on booth, they're not necessarily going to be tailoring to those ends, to those restrictions, and that you sort of have to eyeball, okay, is this gonna get me bonked?
The way that the creators on booth have kind of all converged is like mostly they are VR chat creators, and so the clothes that they are making on booth is mostly VR chat clothes.
Mhm.
So a lot of the clothes that they make is with VR chat guidelines in mind, and as we all know, Twitch's guidelines are very different.
Yes, they are. Memory serves, didn't VR chat just have some guideline changes? I remember seeing something about that on Twitter, I think, or X or whatever the hell it's called nowadays.
I'm sure they did. It's not really something I look out for because I'm not really interested in that side of VR chat,
Yeah,
but
that you're already safely on the side of, you're not having to worry about infringing upon
right.
EOS, so makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any concepts that you've been trying to put together? Obviously, if there's any big projects, don't spoil them here, but either if there's any concept teases or just things that have been cooking in your mind and, it's not around the corner, but you hope to someday figure out how to do this.
I really want to figure out someday how to do like a HoloLive quality concert in 3D with the camera changes and the
Mm,
big stage and the glow sticks and the shiny lights. And I feel like we're getting closer and closer to that, but it's
yeah.
still like a big project, and I definitely would love to be able to do that someday, but it would be
Now,
a
would
long
this
way off.
be a live concert or a recorded one? Because if it's live, it becomes a lot more complex. Of even if the technology exists, that if you're dancing and singing, you're not necessarily going to have your hand on a keyboard or a controller to maneuver or change the camera positioning. So you might need what would essentially be a camera operator being there for you. But if you are doing something where you record it and have all these different cameras and can switch it up in post, that's different. So do you have a vision of whether it be live or recorded?
I think right now the only way to do it is to have it be pre-recorded so that you can, be the one to set up all the camera angles yourself and do several takes if you need to, because
Yeah.
things don't always go as planned. But live, yeah, like you said, you definitely need like someone operating the camera, and you'd have to be pretty confident in your scuffed bedroom setup. So,
Do you
but
have
I
any
still think,
instances of running
mm,
into things in your room?
oh my God, all the time. My office is not very big. It's actually smaller than what like Valve recommends. Like
Oh
I have
my.
I have the Valve index, and so when I draw out my play space, it's like you need to move to a bigger play space, and I'm like, this is all I've got, so deal with
Eh,
it.
I see what you are telling me, Valve, and not even choose to ignore it. I have to ignore it.
You have
Sorry.
to
Work
ignore it. So
anyways.
yeah, so I can probably take about 3 steps in each direction before I crash into something, and I have very often bashed my head against a wall or hit my arm against a shelf, but that comes with the territory.
It's an occupational hazard. I feel like if you've done 3D tracking with your streams for any amount of time, that you're gonna have to get used to it. Also, Viridian K, hello Raiders, welcome on in. Scuff
Hello.
Guild raid, yes. Oh, Scuff Guild podcast raid, very nice. Hope your podcast went well. Hope your stream went well. Welcome on in, folks. I'm Jay. This is Vtuber Talk. I'm talking with Reiny, and thank you for the follow, Viridian K. Reiny is a Android cheerleader, news occasional correspondent, not a cat VTuber, definitely not a cat, adamantly not a cat,
Definitely not a cat.
definitely not a cat. But we've been talking about everything from RPGs, Baldur's Gate. We're talking about VR chat and the different fun things that Reiny's been able to do in 3D spaces. Oh my goodness, thank you for all the follows as well. King Monolith, Matsu Sakame, Turbo the VTuber, and Ronoka-san. Thank you so much for the follows. Welcome on in. Let's see, where were we? Sort of lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, 3D spaces and running into things.
Oh yeah, yep. Thankfully, I've not broken anything yet, but it's only a matter of time, honestly.
Yeah, as long as you don't break anything really expensive, that it's not going to be a Wii remote thrown into a monitor type of situation that, okay, if you run into your desk and you knock over and maybe break a glass or something, that's fine. But hopefully it won't be anything too catastrophic.
No, I certainly don't have the space or the funds to be doing any Fillion-style backflips, but
Oh my goodness.
maybe one day.
And I know there's different mods or things you can do to have the model do a backflip without you having to do a backflip, so we'll just go with that instead.
Yeah, we'll just go with an animated backflip and just tell everyone it's real. Don't tell
Yes,
them.
definitely. Yep. Gosh, now I'm thinking I'm an event nerd and I think about logistics and stuff, and just the concept of doing 3D concerts is something that I'm very much in agreement with you, that I think that tool set is inevitable. It's more of a when, not an if, and I feel like it's going to be something that we probably see a rudimentary tool set become available in the next 2 years, and within 5 that we'll have folks being able to do what is now considered really restrictive, something that only high-end agencies can do, that will become much more publicly accessible within 5 years. But even then, like I was saying, there are going to be certain things that you will need to have at least one other person operating with you, and make sure that they're, hitting the different things for the camera angles or changing backgrounds if you don't have things perfectly timed, and that even with tools, there will be limits to what people can do on their own. But whether that be a mod helping you out or a friend or just Ojiki, that I'm looking forward to the Reiny concert whenever that ends up happening, because I'm sure it will.
I hope so, one day. I mean, we're already seeing the beginnings of, people being able to do crazy things like all the big agencies can do, but from the comfort of their own bedroom using
Hmm.
equipment that costs like $1,000 rather than $1 million.
Yeah. And that's really been the story of VTubing, that Rewind, that most folks will point to Kizuna Ai as really the first VTuber, but at that point in time, it is incredibly high barrier to entry, tens of thousands of dollars for the tracking and the hardware and the software. And then I feel like the real turning point, in that what I point to as the beginning of VTubing in a publicly accessible sense, where it's not just, all right, you have this big company bankrolling you. I look to early mid 2019, that once we have things like VC Face Live 2D available, even if it's more rudimentary models and people are only just figuring out how to rig and get things set up, that when you have that barrier to entry lowered, that's when VTubing really truly began, in my opinion, and that over what has really only been 4 years since then, that we've come so far, and that it's happened so fast, and it feels like VTubing has been around for forever. But this is still the Wild West. Things are really only just beginning. VTubing is not going anywhere, and it's just seeing how fast is this, frankly, exponential growth in technology going to go. Of, will it be 5 years until we have that concert tech? Will it be 2 years? And like I said, I think it's a when, not an if. And I'm interested to see when and how these get implemented, because there's so many things that are available now that we couldn't even imagine 2 years ago. And I'm sure that right now we can't imagine what we're going to have in 2 years. So what is it that we haven't thought of yet,
And I think a lot of the things that are becoming accessible for like indie and smaller VTubers is inspired by like what these huge mega $1 million corporations can do, but how can we make it accessible for someone? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we are looking at what the big cheeses are doing and trying to make it work for us. And that's essentially like how I like to think as well. I look at what other people are doing and I'm like, okay, that's cool. How can I make it work for me?
Yeah. Are there any favorite instances of things that you saw someone else, whether it be a corporate VTuber or someone that isn't corporate, and said, ooh, I want to do that, and found your own way to do it, whether it be using the same technology or finding an alternate solution?
Um, hmm. I think probably my costume switch setup that I've got going on right now, that I'm still kind of playing around with, was loosely inspired by VTubers that can like change their live 2D models outfit in, you know, a press of a button, but make it 3D, and also make it so that it's chat integrated. So chat can like redeem the cheerleading outfit, or chat can redeem the goth outfit, and make it work for make it more integrated for them and more interactive for them rather than it being for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and going back to the different Twitch integrations that we were discussing earlier, just what are the ways that chat can have that influence on the content on the stream, become involved more actively than just chatting? Because for a long time, chatting is really the only way to get involved, and that you might be able to politely make a suggestion to say, hey, I would love to see thing, but now that you can do anything from Twitch redeems to different commands or overlays and integrations, that it makes a big difference for the viewers as much as the streamer.
Exactly.
Are there any tools that you sort of imagine being developed apart from the ones that we've already discussed in terms of concerts? Is there something that you're hoping to find a way to do, or rather to let chat do, that doesn't quite exist right now, or perhaps exists but not as smoothly as you would want?
I would like to find a way to include chat in the actual like concert space, like maybe as like part of the audience. That would be really fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would go about doing that even, but I have seen like uh, that kind of thing occasionally be done by some big corporations. They will somehow integrate it into like the chat is the audience, and you can see them bouncing around and getting all excited. I'd
Yeah.
like to figure out something like that. But I think that's it's a little bit outside my knowledge.
I'm trying to think conceptually, how would that work? That there's, if it is a VR chat space, I don't know if there's a way for you to have, in a world that you set up, like, can you set up permissions where you're able to be on the stage, but that any visitors in that world can't move past this invisible barrier? That way you're not having people in chat storm the stage effectively. Or maybe what you could do is you're performing in world A, and you have your stage and everything there, but you say, all right, here's world B, that I've set this up and this is where everyone in chat can go, and that you're not in the same world as me, so there's no risk of people storming the stage, but that you have a different source with a camera that is in world B, and that every so often you cut to the audience view, so to speak. And I don't know, technologically that means that you're either having two people in different worlds or setting up some type of source. So there's going to be some complexities there, but I wonder if that would be viable at all.
I'm sure that there's some like crazy scripts that you can use to definitely do any of those things. The possibilities are really endless, but scripting is way outside my
But
bar.
I don't know coding at all. That I will speak in vague conceptual concepts and hope that someone smarter than me can do it. But Shanche in the chat says that they've heard of limited areas in VR chat, so maybe there is that type of technology and perhaps scripts that could end up allowing that. And then whether it would be people going into VR chat with their models, or maybe if you had people submit models or images, I don't know, via a Google form or something in advance, that you could then implement them so that they are, even if not actually inhabiting their models in the audience, that you can have the images or models of people that they've submitted be in the audience.
Yeah, that would be super cute. I'd love to figure out how to do that someday.
I think that's going to be one of the big things that non-VTubers and that just mainstream music artists are going to eventually start getting in on. That we've had virtual concerts happen in freaking Fortnite. So some companies are seeing this happen, that, you can be your Fortnite character, and whether that's Darth Vader or Naruto, or I think Futurama's now in it, that you can be at a concert in that sense. And I fully expect mainstream artists to eventually get in on that, and the interaction between the VTuber side of things and the mainstream side of things will be interesting to see, of just how the different developments happen and the adoption of such technology.
Yeah, it's really exciting for me. I love keeping up to date with this kind of stuff. So
Do you have any interest in creating your own models and things to put on booth, or just to sort of have your own self-created line that I do know you do art, and we actually have some pieces that we're going to show off in a little bit. But I'm not sure if you do anything in terms of 3D and making things to sell on booth yourself.
Oh, I used to. Before I became a VTuber, I made
Ah,
clothes and sold them on booth. So that's kind of where my knowledge of 3D and VR came from,
okay,
really.
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I used to make stuff and sell it on booth, but
Mm,
these days I simply don't have time.
ah, we need the Reiny and Ojiki, VR streetwear line.
That would be so cute.
Maybe someday, maybe someday. And actually, you know what? Let's go on and look at the art. And you sent me some fantastic pieces. Uh-oh. I hope they'll be it. Okay, there it goes. Here we are. And the first piece we have actually is of someone whose birthday is today slash yesterday. I forget, given time zones. But we have Moomang.
Moom.
We're Moomin. And this just all the pieces that you have and that you've sent me are just super incredible. I'm actually curious, where does art begin for you as a hobby? Also, I see that I have the alert box
Gosh.
too far down. Let me move that up.
I've always been an artist ever since I was old enough to hold a pen. My mum was really into art, so I learned a lot from her. Art was like one of my favorite subjects in school, and for a long time I didn't like do any illustration whatsoever. I kind of only got back into it maybe shortly before I became a VTuber, and then I got really into other VTubers and drawing fan art for them. And also, it's really fun to draw myself and do like self portraits. So, um, I kind of only really got really back into it when around the time I became a VTuber.
So, if you were away from art, so to speak, how long was that hiatus?
uh,
Because the the pieces that you've sent me, either you remembered things really well, or bottom your art's really good, Reiny, and that if you were taking time that there was a hiatus for you with art, you either just didn't forget anything or you picked it up and then got really good really fast because this is high quality stuff you have here.
Thank you. No, it had been many, many, many years. But nowadays you got really good tutorials and really good studies and learning from other people. Um, I think it's really important to, if you really want to bring something out of your head and put it onto paper, but you don't know how, just look at how someone else has done it and learn from that. That's pretty much how I approach all my pieces. I'm like, man, I really don't know how to do this hair. Like, how do I light the hair? How do I shade the hair? I'll look up a tutorial and follow that.
Mm, and obviously, I'm guessing when you started off doing art when you were much, much younger, that it was going to be, like you said, pen, paper, pencil, paint.
Yeah.
At what point did you start moving to virtual art?
I did have a brief stint with virtual art when I was younger. I bought my first tablet and I did some drawing on like deviant art, but that was really it. Um, and then I don't know, life happens and you just don't have the same interests anymore and you do other things and then suddenly you find that you are interested again. That's pretty much what happened.
Mm, For this piece in particular, did you have any inspiration or any direction, I suppose, that not only, obviously, you had the interest in making a piece of Mume. Was there
Mm.
something that led you to this particular pose or just the overall composition? Because this isn't just a stilted, facing the camera pose, that it's, you have the angle, you have the arms. What, what went into this piece?
Usually, I think for this piece in particular, I usually just start with the face, and then depending on the angle that is at, I'm like, okay, so where can I go from here? It's pretty much I just wing it. I trial and error, and winging it is.
That's fair. Just you start with the face because, all right, you know that the eyes, to an extent, are going to be the same. This is this character's eyes, and that you will probably have the hair, or at least the hair that is at the base of the head, and obviously Mume's hair is very long, so you could have the her hair going out anywhere from there, but then you just sort of let your fancy take where you want to go.
Pretty much, yeah. A lot of artists, like, they know from the beginning what they want to do, and they have an exact vision, and they execute it perfectly. For me, it's a lot of trial and error until I eventually get there.
Mm, I like the detail you have on this of just the gears on the corset have the lighting that it's not just the flat gold color all around that you can tell where the light is there. I do appreciate that you have I'm blanking on the name of her mascot. Isn't it just Friend? The little bag?
Oh, I'm blanking as
Now I'm gonna
well.
have to look this up because this is gonna bother me now.
It's just a little guy.
A little guy, a
Just a
little
silly
bag.
little guy.
Anybody in chat is able to yeah, no, it's just Friend. Yeah.
Yeah, he's cute. I really wanted to include. I think he came as kind of like an afterthought because I think I looked at that side of the illustration. I'm like, damn, it looks really empty over
Yeah,
there.
it's a
What can
little
I
empty
put in
over
there?
there.
Oh
So
yeah, she has a
mhm,
mascot. Let's just do that.
there you go. And that you have the sword, the belt, and everything, and that like I said, it's a really, really good piece, and that everything from the pose and just the way that the hair is going on both sides, I think it's very nice.
Thank you.
When was this one made?
Good question. Let me find out. I am
Check the file data.
from. Yep, check the file data. Where is it? Moomers. Where is she? Here she is. This was made in October 2021.
Oh wow, so this is almost 2 years old at this point.
Yeah. Is that right?
As of
No.
now,
No,
it
no,
is
that is right. Yeah.
it is August 2023 as of time of broadcast, so just a couple months away from 2 years.
Yeah. Looking at the file, it is October 2021 that I created this. This doesn't seem like that long
Yeah.
ago. Wait,
We were already talking about time feeling a bit old of just wait a minute. It's how many
hang
years now?
on. Jesus, God, don't remind me.
This next one sticking with Hollow Council, but going with some deeper blues here. We have fauna in a little lake. I can't tell if it doesn't quite seem like a hot spring, but you have the rocks for what is this small pond, and then you have the field in the background, and that you have the very bright colors up top going into the darker ones on the lower half.
Mhm. This one, I knew that I really wanted to play around with like how water reflects on things, and I think I also picked up a new brush. I love downloading brushes, and it was like a sweat brush, and I was like, ooh, I want to do like water coming off someone's skin. How am I gonna do that? Oh yeah, I'm gonna do fauna like sitting in a pool.
I have effectively no art education, so a lot of my commentary on this stuff is going to be very baseline, very just, okay, I noticed that there are these colors here, or that you have lighting. Do I know how the lighting works? Goodness, no, but I know lighting is lighting, and that you do end up playing with a lot here, that you have you can see that, the sun effectively is almost causing glare on the top part, but then you have it being blocked by the rocks and everything, but still reflecting, and you have these little circles of just it. It almost looks like water on a camera lens.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of a happy accident, but yeah, I really liked how this one came out.
And that again, you have a lot of the detail work of just the design on the lower parts of Fauna's dress. That you have the fringe on everything, and the water itself. That you have, like you said, the reflection, but also just the little circles and ripples that are going to be going around.
Yeah, I will say that being a VTuber fan artist is getting infinitely more complicated because VTubers' designs are getting
Oh
so
yeah,
much
the
more
designs are getting
detailed.
all. Mm-hmm.
I feel sorry for any fan artist who has to draw me and all my crazy geometric buttons and lights and switches and spikes and crosses and all sorts.
It has been really cool to see not just, the growth of VTubers and the community, but like you were saying, artists as well, that it used to be 3-ish years ago that you would see a couple of pieces of VTuber art every day, a few here and there, and that if you followed a couple artists that you saw basically everything that was coming out. Now that there's so much, there's so many people. There are people that have discovered art, that have gotten back into art, that weren't making art for however many years until they found VTubers, and that, the everything from skill level to style, that there's such diversity. And if you are a VTuber fan, that there's a lot of really, really cool stuff, and it's very fun to see just as a fan.
Twitter is a really, really, really good place for artists. I think I follow like 3,000 some people, and I think 80% of them are other artists. So I really think that if you want to learn how to draw, follow artists on Twitter and examine what they do. And some of them are even like really cool, and they will explain how they did something, or they'll share their favorite brushes, or they'll show like footage of like a speed draw from start to finish, and you can learn so much from them.
What is your art education? That you mentioned that you started very early. I'm guessing you took a couple of art classes in school, but is the majority of what you learned from more formal education, whether that be in school or taking private lessons, or just learning as you go?
I'm almost entirely self-taught. I did go to university for animation and like 3D design at university. But I found that I really didn't like the classes, so I dropped out and just learned how to do it myself.
I have heard of a good number of people doing that, and that I definitely understand and see the value of formal art education. But for some people, it's just not going to be enjoyable. And for some people, it's not going to be the most effective way to learn anyways. And goodness knows that art is such a subjective, open concept. That's the whole thing. It's freaking art, that some people don't necessarily need the structure that a formal education provides, and that you're going to end up just having more fun and being able to find your own style better if you're able to go through either YouTube tutorials or just taking the time to discover your own style.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel that there was any real turning point for you in your art journey? Was there, not necessarily, obviously, you learn and you grow bit by bit. There's not going to be one morning where you wake up and suddenly you're amazing at art. But was there perhaps a skill or a mindset that you found to be particularly impactful?
For me, it was coming onto Twitter and then following all these amazing artists and learning from them. That was a huge influence on me. I definitely, my old art did not look like this until I came to Twitter and started learning from other artists. My old art is like nothing in comparison.
Mm. Do you know when this one was done?
I want to say it was around the same time. Let me see. I kind of went through a phase where like I was just drawing or trying to draw all of Hollow Council, but I only ended up managing to do 3 of them. Let me see.
Well, spoiler alert, that's where we're going next.
Spoiler alert. So this one was August 2021.
Okay. And this scans because that is going to be a couple months after their debut.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think that until Advent came along, which is a week ago as of today, actually, that it had been 2 years since we had a Holo EN generation, that we had Holo Stars last year, but they actually took a pretty long time, that there was about, I think it was 11 months or so between Myth and Council, but then that they took that extra time, they really let Holo Stars EN have their breathing room and gave them some, really front and center billing and let them have that. And we now have Advent, which has been received very, very warmly. It's been very exciting. It just, it's not every day that you get a major set of debuts like this. And whether it be Whole Live, Niji Sanji, or the others, that it's always a fun community event of just celebrating, hey, these are the folks that had been able to make the big time, and whether you know about past lives or not, of just the excitement around all of it is something very special.
Yeah, especially with holo debuts, they are very few and far between. But
Yeah.
when they do come out, it's always like a big, exciting
Hmm.
thing. I feel like if you debut too many people in such a short time span, it becomes a bit less special. And so I think that's why Hololive debuts are always something to look forward to because, it could be 3 years before you get another one.
Yeah, it was weird to think that until Holix debuted sometime last year, that the JP branch had gone like 2.5 years with nothing. That I think they had a Holostars debut somewhere in there, but it wasn't much that they had actually gone after Gen 5, at least in Hololive, not counting stars, that it was Myth, ID2, Council, ID3, and then it was Holix, which would be JP6. So it had
Wow.
actually been a while, and that I know a lot of folks, just on the Japanese side were really excited because, well, they hadn't had anyone new in a while. So
Hmm.
it had been this anticipation because goodness knows, Hololive grew exponentially between the time that fifth generation JP and Holix debuted, that it's just a different world.
Yeah. I feel like Hololive is very good at retaining their talents as well. So I wonder if, the reason for the big gaps in time is perhaps they are slowing down and maybe will eventually just stop.
My guess is they'll
Um,
probably scale their staff as opposed to completely stop, but
hmm.
I do think that my guess is they'll keep their current pace of doing 1 to 2 sets of debuts per year, and
Hmm.
certainly never more than one per branch per year.
Yeah.
But you are right; they've definitely taken the slow and steady approach that Niji Sanji does a lot of debuts, and that's great for them and their talent. But it's very interesting to see the strategy differences, I suppose, between Niji Sanji and Hololive. That there's no wrong way to do it, but that they have each really created their own style.
Yep. Exactly.
And you mentioned you had done one other from Council, and that is Bay. And I have to imagine this piece may have been challenging. Just you're dealing with a different set of gravity.
Yeah, I saw like Bey's announcement and I saw that they like put her upside down and I thought that was completely hilarious. I wanted to like make her upside down but like have her be affected by gravity. And so I just did this little like doodle and I even look at it now and I'm like, man, there's so much that I want to improve on this, but for some unknown reason, Twitter took this and they ran with it, and I think it has like 20,000 likes or something. It is
Oh,
my most,
wow.
yeah, it's my most liked tweet ever.
Well, it's like I said, it's not every day that people are going to do an upside down composition where it's not just, okay, teehee, I've rotated the canvas and that I'm posting it upside down. That would still be amusing in and of itself, but that you have, she's hanging from the ceiling. She's actually upside down. Gravity is as such. Everything from hair, the key around her neck, and that you also have the little mascot just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, he's doing his best.
I love that you have the circle eyes. That is one of my favorite expressions of just that.
I'll add
It's
this.
simple, yes. The simple chibi terror look. Was this particularly challenging since you had to have that different mindset just from the composition standpoint of thinking, okay, normally hair is going to fall this way, and now I need to have it fall that way, and
Yeah.
everything is literally upside down.
Yeah, it was quite a difficult piece to do, but I really wanted to make it work. I wasn't like thinking in my head, you know, I want this to be popular. because by the end of it, I was like, this isn't like up to my standards that I would like, but I don't really want to work on it anymore, so I'll post it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then people just kind of resonated with it. But it did get a lot of feedback, like especially because of the way that I had like flipped the canvas while I was working on it. I kind of got confused about which way the text should be facing, and so
Oh,
it ended up being the wrong way
whoops.
around. Yeah, and then like another thing, I was like, I didn't know how to make Booba be affected by gravity, so I was just like, I'll draw it the right
Mm.
way up, and a lot of people
She
picked up
just
on
has
that.
very good support there. It's being held
Yeah,
very, very well, and
it's a very good
therefore,
bra.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that like if I did this differently, I would definitely change a lot of things. But yeah,
Maybe that's something for, they usually have, all right, your style now versus then, or your growth now versus then, when you perhaps redo a piece after a certain amount of time to see your own growth. So maybe this could be a piece to revisit for you someday.
yeah, that would be fun.
But it just, in general, I am not surprised that people ran with it, but at the same time, I think it's very good that you were able to force yourself perhaps out of your comfort zone and just post it and say, okay, even if I'm unsure about this, that it's something that you hear a lot of artists fighting against, of that, all right, it's not quite where I want it to be, it's not quite where I want it to be, and that they just end up in this cycle and potentially not posting something, even if it's really good, and that whether it is a video, a piece of art, what have you, that sometimes as a creator, you just have to say, all right, whether it's a deadline I've set for myself or just saying, I've worked on this for however long, and I know that if I keep just banging my head against the wall, that it's going to be diminishing returns. I just need to put this out into the world, and letting that be okay, even if you're not 100% satisfied, that I'm glad you were able to get over that hump and be able to post this.
I think a big thing that me and a lot of other artists struggle with is perfectionism. And at some point, you just have to be like, okay, this isn't getting any better. I need to stop and either take a new approach or just leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to get better at, because I really admire artists who are absolutely incredible and they're so skilled that they can make an absolutely beautiful piece of art in like a matter of an hour, whereas for me it takes me like several days.
Well, I guarantee you this is still better than I could do if you gave me 6 months. It's you get better over time, and you get faster with time, and that the folks who are able to make those masterpieces in an hour, how many hours have they spent between starting art and now, that it's they've put in the time, not perhaps on that individual piece, but they've put in many, many, many hours previously to be able to make a piece in an hour.
It's a good way of looking at it.
These are the only 3 that you've done for council, so do you have any plans to go back and perhaps finish up the set, or do you think that no immediate plans perhaps to go back to council as your subjects?
I wanted to, like, I had a sketch for Crony already sketched out, but I just never finished it. And then Sana graduated, and
Yeah.
I really wanted to draw Sana, but I didn't have time. And so I'm just like,
Mm.
I tend to just draw things that really inspire me. And during that time period, the Hollow Council were the things that inspired me. And so I just
Mhm.
hyper fixated on that for a while, and
Yeah.
then you lose focus and you move on to other things. So
Yeah, and I think that's a very practical approach, that as an artist, you should do what inspires you. That if you're not, assuming it's not a commission or something, that if you're not working on something that you love and are inspired by, that it's going to, one, just be more prone to causing burnout, and that you're probably not going to do your best work. So I'm glad that you were able to have that self-awareness and say, okay, I'm not super inspired at this moment in time, and not forcing myself to complete the set. That if you had actually gone out of your way and said, okay, I did these 3 and I feel like I need to do the other 2, even if I don't want to, that probably would have been much worse than the choice to, okay, I'm going to stop, I'm going to step back. Maybe I'll go back to it someday, maybe not. And I think that what you decided was a healthy choice.
yeah, exactly. Maybe someday I'll go back to my unfinished Crony sketch, but knowing me, It's very unlikely.
Now, this next one, the file just said magnet.
Oh yeah. So this is an example of I did the illustration for my cover song duet that I did with Shiki from Prism Project. Um I try and do because covers can be quite expensive to produce, so I try and mitigate the costs
By
by
having your own
doing
art.
yeah, by doing the art
Mm,
myself. That way, there's less things to pay for.
makes sense.
And so yeah, I did the art for this cover of Magnet that I did with Shiki.
Okay, that makes sense. That I'm not familiar with the piece, so I'm not sure if this art is inspired by art that was in the original, or if this was
Yeah.
just a completely original composition. Okay, so it was based on it. All right, so it's like I don't know of any VTubers with the name Magnet, so I'm pretty sure that's not the other person in this piece. But obviously, it was clear there was a deliberate naming here, so now I'm gonna have to go check out that cover.
Yes, yeah, please do. I'm really proud of it and it's really cool. And I think it has like 20,000 views or something insane like that. So yeah.
Uh, And while I do have Reiny's Twitch and Twitter links here, that I do have her YouTube link down in the channel panels if you're watching live on Twitch, and the link will be in the video description when this goes up on my YouTube as a VOD in a week or two. In retrospect, I probably should have just included the YouTube link instead of the Twitch link here on screen, because I would say that while you do stream on both YouTube and Twitch, I feel like YouTube is well, I don't know if I would call it your primary. Do you feel like you have a primary? Because you do have both in relatively equal amounts.
I would say that YouTube is the primary purely because that I streamed and made content for YouTube long before I actually joined Twitch. I think
Mm,
I've only really been active on Twitch for maybe like a year and a half, maybe just under that. Whereas YouTube I've been on since debut, so it's going on almost 2 years,
yeah, the
3 years.
the handle on the YouTube page is not Ojiki and Reiny.
No, that one is my sister's old handle. So she was a streamer and content creator long before I was. She's been doing this for like 5 years now. So her YouTube handle is Dokugan P, which is what she used to go by. And we just kept it like that because that's what people knew her as.
Yeah, that if you already have a brand to any extent, that you might as well leverage it. But I am curious, what led to the decision of a shared channel? That I usually make a point of not asking how someone got into VTubing, but I'm curious for you two in particular, what made you decide, all right, we want to approach this as a pair?
I think it all kind of branched off from the fact that my model was law-wise built to be the sister to her model. So it started off there, and then we kind of thought, well, it would be cool if we could share a channel and then, constantly have a channel that is always got something going on. We're both in different time zones, so there's no chance of us, crossing over each other. And also, it would be good to attract like a Western audience and a Japanese
Mm,
audience. And also, it meant like business sense because it meant that we didn't have to start a channel from zero and go through monetization and trying to grow a community from scratch. So it made sense in a lot of ways.
it's interesting. I hadn't even thought of it particularly of time zone coverage, because you're right, it makes sense from all those different angles. But one thing that makes YouTube particularly unique is that usually when you have people going into content creation with a shared channel, that they are streaming simultaneously, whereas the two of you do stream together every so often, but that most of what you do is separate, and that you are sharing the same channel, and that it does give you the time zone coverage and make it so that you're able to reach people across the world regardless of that time of day, because that's been a big thing. It was a big thing prior to Holo EN, that people obviously weren't watching, if you're in the West, weren't going to be watching Holo JP as much, one language barrier, but even if you did speak Japanese, of time zones, when it's like a 14-hour difference, that's a lot. And it just makes it difficult to keep up with folks. And that being able to actually just naturally have that coverage ends up being really good.
Yeah, so it kind of works out that way as well for us. It means that when Ojiki is streaming, she's streaming during Japan prime time, but people in the US asleep and people in Europe are at work. And then by the time I get to stream, the people in the US are awake, the people in the Europe are home from work, and the people in Japan are sound asleep. So it
Hmm.
does kind of mean that we kind of don't really see each other's audiences, and there's very little crossover these days.
But every so often, you're going to have someone who's woken up in the middle of the night and like, well, not going to be able to fall back to sleep. Might as well see who's on. And that,
Yeah.
oh, well, maybe I initially followed because I was watching Reiny streams, but I see Ojiki's on. And that, uh, even if you're not able to understand Japanese, that, like you said, she speaks a small amount of English, or just, there's plenty of entertainment you can do, even if you don't have the language comprehension.
hmm She has a translator going on her stream as well, so that's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
good.
I hadn't. That's another thing of just streaming technology that we have now. Of translators are getting better and better.
So yeah, that's kind of how it came to be. Um, and I think that with now that Fuamoko is here and we've got like, big corporation representation of people sharing channels, it's going to be a lot less confusing for people because initially, constantly we get comments saying, I thought this was rainy, but I went to stream and it's just a dude talking. And it's like, if you stuck around for maybe just a few more minutes, you probably would
Or
have realized.
or read at least the Twitch URL. That if it's
Yeah.
on YouTube, it's a bit more forgivable, perhaps. But
Mm.
anyone who says that on Twitch obviously is not reading. But then again, people don't always read. So
Yeah, so I'm hoping that now that people are seeing it being done by a big channel, that they will realize, oh, it's actually not a new thing, and people can share channels, and it's not as weird and confusing as you think it is.
yeah. Well, there's been a whole bunch of Twitch and Twitter and YouTube accounts that have done that for years in terms of being mini content networks of just groups of friends that have worked together on videos or content or streams. And all right, I'm going to stream this day of the week, you'll stream that day of the week, and that we're going to have this shared channel, shared audience, and that way you know you're able to have more consistency. And even if people can't commit to a full-time schedule, that you can have your channel be a full-time schedule while splitting things up. And that concept has existed for a while. But you are right that in terms of VTuber channels, they have been relatively few and far between. And it will be interesting to see if there is a bit of a spike in people attempting that. And certainly, there's a whole other set of hazards and considerations that go into it. But at the same time, there's a lot of benefits. And I'm hopeful that people will experiment with it and that hopefully it'll be right for some people.
Yeah. I mean, the people who do stick around, I'm super grateful for, obviously. But then I also kind of just want new people to come and, give it a chance. Because we're both really fun, and we're both like such polar opposites as well in terms of like the kind of games that we want to play. So she really likes FPS games and battle royales and fighting games, and I'm like the complete opposite. I like my chill, cozy Animal Crossing farming simulators and my
Mm,
role-playing Dungeons and Dragons games. So there's something for everyone.
yeah, and again, that feels like a feature, not a bug, that you have that diversity of time coverage and of content.
hmm
Are there any instances where YouTube have sort of, I suppose, dragged each other into your respective genres, that perhaps she's gotten you to play some FPS, or that you've gotten her into some RPGs, and any craziness that might happen therein?
I mean, I kind of got into Apex for a while, but that was because I saw a lot of my friends playing it and I was feeling lonely and I really wanted to play with my friends, so I picked it up. And then I ended up joining like the tournament that she runs every so often. She hosts an Apex tournament for people who are bad at Apex, and I was like, "Hey, that's me."
Oh, this works out so nicely.
Yeah. So I kind of got into it that way, but honestly, FPS and battle royales just make me rage and angry, and so I don't play them.
Yeah, I've never begun at FPSs, And since they weren't something I grew up with, I sort of missed the train. I feel like the skill barrier to entry is so high nowadays if you're going to play online, because if you
Yeah.
grew up playing FPSs and you know how to play an FPS, you can port those skills from one game to another pretty seamlessly. But if you don't know what you're doing and you try to do online play, ooh, you're gonna be in for a rough time.
Yeah, she noticed that a lot of these Apex tournaments were for people who are like insanely good master level. They have been doing this professionally for ages. They are the top, the elite. And there wasn't like anything for the people who maybe, just getting started. And so that was really nice. And yeah, she's been doing that for a few years now.
Mhm. Do you have any events or tournaments or anything to that effect that you organize?
Not really. I'm not really good at organizing big events. I tend to keep things quite cozy and just do collabs with friends.
Mhm. So I guess the follow-up there was going to be, would there be anything that you would want to organize? But I'm guessing that if you find your style to be better in smaller group settings, that, that's entirely valid as well.
Yeah. I like to think I'm fairly organized, but then also I forgot about the pre-interview, so
No, you're fine. And there's a big difference in terms of being organized when it comes to small scale collabs versus being organized and running a massive tournament. That it's
exactly.
night and day. And that
Yeah,
some
I'll
people just
leave that
don't
to
enjoy
them.
that type of organization, and that's fine.
Yeah, it's not for me. That's
Mm,
that's she's definitely an organizer person. I mean, it was her idea to have like me and like have me on as a VTuber. She also organized like her own VTuber group, Clive. So there's a couple of VTubers under her who kind of like they're like a little group. She organizes these tournaments and events and stuff. So she is the manager in the truest sense.
mm. Now, I need to apologize in advance for this next piece because it's not going to look as good as it should.
Oh,
Um, and that's because it's a really big file
ah, I
that
should have given you a smaller
no,
one.
you're good. And if anything, that I'll be able to make it look good, but the dimensions on this piece, I knew it was a big file when I imported it into OBS, and there was a half second after I imported it before it appeared. Anytime there's that, I have a fairly beefy computer. When I saw even that split second of lag, I was like, oh, this is a big
Oops,
file. And then I
it's
went in and looked
8K.
at the dimensions. This is 7,680 by 4,320, a good 2 to 3 times the next biggest piece that you gave me.
I can
So,
explain.
I apologize that this is going to probably look a bit crunched because it is. And I'm gonna unlock this and I'll move around the piece so you can actually see it, because right now you are not seeing the proper quality because I had to compress it. That this thing is massive and it is so detailed.
It's because I made it initially with having it be a wallpaper in mind, and so I wanted to cover every wallpaper size, and I was like, well, some people got 8K monitors. I might as well make it 8K and start from there.
Yep, that'll do it.
That's why it's so big. I didn't realize I sent you the big version. I should have sent you the smaller one.
You're good. So was this for, I don't know, was this Valentine's Day or White Day or something?
Yeah, it was like a Valentine's Day kind of like birthday celebration. I did a cover of Sweet Magic, and of course I did the art
Ah,
for it. So, and like also to go with it, I wanted to make like a wallpaper pack so people could have the art on like their phone and their desktop. And I also included like a voice pack with it. I made it like a big thing.
mm, how long did this take to make did it being, just simply a larger scale piece, did that mean you had to spend more time on it, or did you have a difference in just, all right, your canvas was bigger, so perhaps it took about the same amount of time? What went into this one?
This one took quite a long time purely because of just how indecisive I was. It was my own damn fault. It
Well, what
started
were
off
you
being
indecisive about?
like the pose and everything. I wanted to make it, for some reason, I just wasn't getting what was in my head down onto the paper right the first time. And so there was several iterations of this piece, all of them like completely different than the last, until eventually I finally got something that I liked and was happy to release to the world. So this one, it wasn't the size that was the issue, because you can like zoom in and out in Photoshop and stuff, so that's no problem. It was just my own indecision.
Mm, and I enjoy it. So it almost feels Kiki's delivery service in
Yeah.
that you have the fork, essentially, sort of, you're riding it like a broomstick. You have the big ribbons, you have all the strawberries and chocolates, you have the ones in the foreground, but also the big ones in the background. And then there's sort of the lace doily pattern that you can see in the lower left-hand corner. That this is a very dynamic is probably not the term. Like I said, I'm not an artist, so it's not a busy piece, but it's got a lot of elements to it.
Yeah, this one was pretty much inspired by the song, which is Sweet Magic, and it's like a song about like, you know, wanting to express your feelings for someone by making them sweet treats, and like the secret ingredient being love, you know, all that cheesy anime
Aw.
stuff.
Of course, of course.
So I was like, I really wanted to make something that looked like really cute and magical, so I made it look like you know, she's riding the fork like a broomstick, like a little witch.
Mm,
And then
mm.
all those elements like around it, all of them were separate pieces as well. So when the person who made the video could like really play with each of those elements and make it really dynamic and make them move around and stuff.
Ah,
Mm.
dynamic was the term I was looking for.
Mm.
And I like that you have, your base color of yellow still on the dress, but the parts that are usually black, you've changed to a chocolate brown color.
Yeah. I feel like black is too harsh of a color to be using on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, for this one in particular, and that, it fits, you already have all these other chocolates and sweets around. So to change that palette just a little bit, that it's still very clearly you, but, it's the perfect occasion to do that slight palette swap.
Exactly.
Now I'm just getting hungry looking at this. This was a terrible idea. What have I done?
It does look tasty, like those little strawberries, the
Mhm.
shine on them.
There are not
Yum.
enough chocolate-covered strawberries in the world. That is such a underrated dessert.
Agreed. Why don't people have
Like,
chocolate strawberries
it,
more often?
it's usually seen as such a fancy thing that anytime you're gonna try and buy it, it costs an arm and a leg. It's obviously strawberries, depending on where you live, aren't necessarily going to be cheap, but if you ever want chocolate-covered strawberries, it's so easy to make. Just, buy a bag of chocolate chips, put them in the microwave for 15, 30 seconds, whatever, and then just dip them. It's that easy, and that you almost never see them, at parties or at restaurants. But it's such a simple thing, and they're so good. Why aren't
Oh, I
more
don't
people
even
doing
do
this?
that. I just like buy a punnet of strawberries and dip them into like the tub of Nutella.
That works too. Ooh, also, just Nutella appreciator. Very good taste. Very good taste. Do you have any favorite sweets of your own, whether it be for Valentine's Day or just if you're looking for a dessert?
I am a big lover of lemon meringue pie. Lemon meringue pie is really good.
Ooh.
I also really like apple crumble. That's really nice, one of my favorites. We have a
Mhm.
dessert in the UK called sticky toffee pudding. Oh my god, it is banging.
I can envision what this is, but I'm kind of curious that, obviously pudding, toffee, I understand. What is the sticky part here?
It's like a spiced, like treacle sponge, and you have it hot and you cover it in hot melted like caramel toffee sauce, and it's just the whole thing is just like sticky and gooey, and like the sauce like melts into the sponge, and you have it with like cream or ice cream depending on your
Ooh,
preference.
I'm looking this up
And
right now. I see
yeah.
that a sponge, big fluffy cake. A lot of these do have a scoop of ice cream on that. The the brown of the cake definitely suggests that it's a spice type of thing.
Mhm.
It's definitely not chocolate. That's ooh.
it's a very good thing to have in winter because of just how warm and
Oh
comforting it
yeah.
is, and it's a very, very popular British pub food dessert. If you go
Mm,
to any pub in the UK, they will have sticky toffee pudding on their dessert. It is like a standard. About as standard as having like fish and chips on a pub menu. It will be there.
ooh. Yeah, and I love learning about just different regions and different cultures' desserts because no matter, certain things in different regions and cultures will sometimes at a glance seem odd, and that, I'm an adventurous eater anyways. That I will usually eat anything as long as I have a marginal assurance that it is not going to be harmful to me. That I'll try anything once. But I feel like desserts in particular are such an easy thing that
You can't go
I can't
wrong.
that I don't know if I've ever seen a dessert from any region and said, I don't understand this. I don't understand why people would enjoy this because they're always going to be sweet. They're always going to be tasty. And just seeing different cultures figure out, all right, let's take these different flavors and prepare them this way. And it's the type of thing that I look at sticky toffee pudding and it's like, why the hell don't we have this in America? This is perfectly logical. This is perfectly normal. We have, like spice cake. We top plenty of things with ice cream here. Why haven't we adopted this? Why aren't we doing
It's
this?
so good. You're missing out. It is the bomb.
I've gotten an image. Let me just get this in here so the folks at home can see and get hungry over what we're talking about here.
Now I really want sticky toffee pudding, but I feel like it's such like a warm dessert that you don't want to have it in summer. In summer, you
Mm,
want things like lemon cheesecake and key lime pie and like sorbet. But in winter, you want chocolate lava cake. You want sticky toffee pudding. Oh my god, that looks amazing.
yeah.
Oh, stop.
Now,
Oh,
it does sort of interest me that this is called pudding, though, because
oh.
it, you know, I've had pudding, I've seen different types of pudding, and that I would really sort of associate this as a cake, not a pudding.
I think it is more to do with the fact that in the UK, pudding is just a catch-all term for dessert. So
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Terminology difference.
you would have pudding after dinner, and if you went into a restaurant and said, "Can I see the pudding menu?" they would give you the dessert menu.
That makes sense. But at the same time, that I understand that biscuits mean cookie, but
Mm.
cake is a term that I've heard used uh, in British. But then again, cake can also mean bread, can't it? Or sometimes,
Kinda.
or
I mean, I
maybe.
guess there are some like cakes that could be considered more bread-like and more breads that could be considered more cake-like, but I mean, the English language is full of
Oh
inconsistencies,
yeah,
so
it's super weird that I was talking with someone that a story my father told me once is he was taking a business trip to Australia, and one of the business people he was working with took him to I forget if it was like a rugby game or something, and he very casually asked one of the people sitting near him and his friend, "So which team do you root for?" And she gave him this horrified expression, and his friend apologized to the woman and said, "Root means F here, to means intercourse here."
oh.
So he accidentally randomly asked woman, which team do you get F for? And just
Oh my god, I
and
didn't
just
know that.
that. So if you're ever, and from what I understand, that term is not as widely recognized and used nowadays, but it's still in the vernacular, even if not necessarily commonly used. So yeah, if you're an American ever going to an Australian sporting event, be careful when asking which team somebody else cheers for.
I just remember the little funny one. In the UK, and no, in America, you have like fanny packs. The
Mm-hmm.
like the
Oh,
little bag that you wear
yeah.
around
That
your
is sort of
waist.
like hip, and that like
Yeah.
fanny can mean bum, but it means the other end in other regions.
Yes, in the UK that means the other side, and so
Yeah.
we call them bum bags to
Yep.
prevent any misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm. Also, Ben, next, thank you for the follow. And also, I think I forgot to thank Darkside360X a while back. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for the follow. And for me, I'm trying to think, like, what dessert do I like? You mentioned chocolate lava cake, and that's just so good that's really safe. Gosh. Well, obviously, there's very few. I don't know if there's ever really been a dessert that I didn't like, frankly.
Right.
But, if you were to say, all right, you can have any dessert you want, and it's going to be made really well, it would probably be, it would either be a chocolate lava cake or like a really good cookie cake.
Ooh.
Like moist center, fudge, or like very fudgy brownies.
Ooh, stop. You're killing me.
That my father was always very good at making brownies, and just eventually we realized, all right, put them in the oven for like 2-3 minutes less than you think you need it to be, so it retains just, that the inside is not quite fully cooked.
Oh.
That's, in my opinion, realistic. That, I will still eat a cookie if it is a little bit overdone, but that's one of the saddest things of just, oh no, like if a cookie is burnt or if it's so cooked that it's dried out in the center, I feel like that is wasted potential, perhaps.
Still delicious, but
Still
not
delicious.
as delicious as it could be.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to move us back to the main screen so we don't get any hungrier.
Thank God.
So a while back, well, actually not even too far back, but a couple weeks ago, you were exploring VCAT, the virtual online sort of convention, really, and going through the different worlds. And there was a bunch of fun different things that I remember, like Cup Noodle had this big sponsor thing where it was this super dystopian, like, cup noodle thing that you could be turned into a cup noodle with these buff arms and legs, or have a little cup noodle prop on your head. But like, they wrote up this whole scenario where it was very clearly, this is the cup noodle empire. And I was more fascinated just as an audience member and someone who, like, I'm a business nerd. I find different marketing strategies fascinating, that somebody had to pitch that, somebody was in the boardroom, and somebody at a high level of management approved it and said, yes, we are okay having our brand be associated with some dystopian future where we are forcibly having people transformed into cup noodles with buff arms and legs.
I mean, it's a Japanese company, so they have a very Japanese sense of humor. You can definitely see the sense of humor there is very typically Japan. It's just so crazy and out there. There's a buff cup noodle. It's so insane and so Japan. It's great. Honestly, I had no idea. I was quite happy going in and like taking a look at a wall of different cup noodles, and then suddenly I get transported into like this full-on,
it was almost
like VR
Spider-Man
game
type thing.
Yeah.
That you could be swinging around this cup noodle city. And that's the type of marketing I love. Of, they very clearly had it, branding. They had sort of some history and a bit of stuff of how they legitimately produce cup noodles and, factory stuff, but that they let themselves be really silly and irreverent. And yes, it is marketing at the end of the day, but I do appreciate when companies make their marketing fun, and that it's really cool that so many have gotten in on things like VCAT, and I'm looking forward to seeing how things like that grow, that, similar to VTubers and Vtuber Tech growing, that what other types of fun events, activations, whether it be marketing based or just people making fun stuff, that there's so much potential.
I think having an event like VCAT in VR chat kind of forces companies to be a little bit more creative and fun with it, because you are essentially making something for a game, and so it kind of works a bit differently than in real life. In real life, you go to a convention, you might go up to a table and you might like be able to talk to someone about their product. You can't really do that in VCAT because there's nobody there to like.
Well, I mean, there is the very simple approach of, we're going to have a virtual billboard, we're going to have these signs, and that there were a couple companies that had just, their logo on this big side of a building and maybe a sign that said a bit about the product or a bit about the history. And certainly Cup Noodle had that as well, but that they went all in and actually did develop something in addition to that, and that hopefully we'll see the companies with the simpler approach, grow over time and be able to be more comfortable doing things like that.
Yeah, and I think essentially what you want out of VCAT is for people to come up and, find your booth so interesting that they will want to take pictures and share and tell people about the fun thing that you can do at this booth. And so more people want to come and check out your booth and take pictures, and that's how you
Yep.
get people's attention in VCAT.
Need a Reiny and Ojiki activation. I don't know how it would work, but but while you were there, you also visited a stage where you were able to do the Hare Hare Yukai, and that you tried to actually do it once from memory, and then you could also just have your model be autopiloted. I was very impressed with how much you just remembered, and that you were able to actually do a good amount of the dance just from memory.
What can I say? I'm a boomer.
As much as I hate to have to say this, for any of you who might not know what the Hare Hare Yukai is because you're youngins, that's the dance from the ending of Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. And if you aren't familiar with that, well, one, that makes me feel even older, but go read/watch Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. It's a really good series. Yes,
Well, you
even the
did.
Endless Eight.
Wow.
I'm not going to defend the Endless Eight, but I will say you should watch it. I feel like it is an experience that everyone should have once.
When did the anime come out? I'm really interested.
I feel like it was
Anime.
2004, 5, 6-ish maybe.
2006. Oh
Ooh,
God, I'm so old.
almost 20 years old.
Shut up.
Hey, don't worry, that's not an attack against you, or if it is, it's an attack against me as much as it is you.
Oh, the pain.
I wish they had actually finished the series, because I've read the rest of the light novels. That is like the only series that I have gone out of my way to read the light novels because the anime ended. I don't think I've done it for any other series, and the series has a very good ending, and from my understanding, the Endless Eight basically killed it. Of just, it tanked things so badly, because you have to remember, if you were watching that live in Japan, that's 2 months. 2 months of the same thing, effectively. And that, if I think people should watch it nowadays when you watch it back to back and appreciate the artists. It was new outfits, new compositions, that there was 8 episodes of work put into that. The lines were re-recorded, everything. But man, I can't imagine having to watch that and wait every week and sort of, after the second or third week, realize and have that sinking feeling, this is just going to be the same, isn't it? And I can imagine that a lot of people dropped off and that the ratings probably tanked, and that's probably why we never got the rest of it.
Maybe one day they'll do a reboot. I think
I
it would go
hope
down
so,
really well if they
'cause
did.
there's still obviously the love for it that, you have even now in VCAT, the dance, and that they've done like a couple of spin-offs here and there. They had the disappearance of Yuki Nagato like 5-6 years ago. And it's something that I look at and say, why haven't they gone back to that? Well, I feel like Haruhi has clearly stood the test of time, and we've had full-on reboot remakes of Urusei Yatsura, Fruits Basket. There's been a whole bunch of those, and I feel like they don't even need to do a full reboot on Haruhi, that you can just continue where you left off after Disappearance and go from there.
That's what they did with Card Captor Sakura. The Card Captor Sakura is like the next series in the series.
Because goodness knows that Kyoto Animation's work holds up today. That if you were to show me what Haruhi was back in the day and say, this was made in 2023, I believe you. That it is that good.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope we get it someday. It's like, I'm not holding my breath, but it's one that I look at it and say, this seems so viable. It seems so realistic. Why haven't they done it yet?
I think it would be a really good business move.
I hope so. Like, maybe that's one that they're keeping in the vault, that they know it's going to be successful, so they're not actually doing it until they maybe have a bad season or two and they need something that they know will be a surefire win for numbers. And that's, in case of emergency, make Haruhi.
Yeah. Break glass for Haruhi.
Are there any series that you grew up with that you either would love to see remade, or just ones that you go back and rewatch a whole bunch even today?
I mean, I grew up on Magical Girls, so I grew up on Cardcaptor Sakura, I grew up on Sailor Moon, and both of them have had reboots, which I've seen. I'm trying to think, is there anything that I really loved and would really want to see a reboot? Those are the only two that come to mind, honestly. These days, I don't watch enough anime. I don't have enough time.
That's fair. You're busy VTubing.
Exactly, yeah. And then I also kind of get impatient when it comes to anime. I'm kind of like you. Like, if they don't finish a season, or if they leave the season on a cliffhanger, I will pick up the manga and finish the manga, and then I'm just not interested in the anime anymore because I already
I'm very
know
much
what
the
happened.
opposite. That Haruhi was the anomaly for me, that usually I will wait for the anime, that I like seeing things in color, in motion, and that, I have not finished Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia, that I'm willing to wait and not go to the manga because I know they're going to make it and I know it's going to get finished. That I went to the light novels for Haruhi some 3-4 years after they stopped making, when I was pretty sure, all right, we're not getting any more, at least not in the foreseeable future.
I see.
But I do know plenty of folks that are very much like you. I feel like I'm sort of in the minority of not going to the manga or the source material.
Yeah, I only do it when I get fed up of waiting. I did that with Attack on Titan. I got fed up of waiting for the next season, so I just read
They
the
did
manga
have
and-
that 5-year hiatus,
Yeah.
and they've been pretty consistent since. I will gripe about their season numbering, but that's a separate conversation.
I haven't actually seen any of the newer seasons because of, that long hiatus. I just fell off the
And
bandwagon.
it's been really, really good. That's one of the series that I look at and I say, it's got a lot of hype, but it deserved the hype. It was good production values, good performances, music, everything, and that it's been very satisfying to watch, even with the hiatus. But that I'm not sure if you're aware that they had season 3, which took 2 cores that were a bit separated, and then there was final season. There was final season part 2, and then final season part 3, and now it's the final chapters. So this is the 4th season that was supposed to be the final season.
Do you think maybe they didn't realize how good that they are doing, and so they're just like, okay, that one did really well, so
sure.
this is the final. No, this is the final.
I'm not sure if it was that. Maybe it was a marketing thing of, okay, let's say final season so it gets people hyped to tune in, or maybe they only allocated for a certain amount and then it did so well that they were able to get the budget to take their time with it in a way they didn't think they would be able to. But whatever it is, it's created a bit of a mess in terms of, like I said, just the season naming. The series is still phenomenal, don't get me wrong. That the fact that I'm complaining about the titling of all things, if that's the worst, you're in a pretty good place. But definitely, if that's one you really enjoyed, I'd suggest maybe not going back and rewatching the whole thing, but pick a scene or two that you really liked of just, seeing the rumbling in motion. They did that very well. That I can imagine reading it and that being good, but it was a really powerful moment in motion and animation.
Maybe I'll go back to it.
You mentioned some magical girls, and I feel like your model has magical girl inspiration in it, at least a little bit.
That wasn't really the intention. It's kind of supposed to be more like cyberpunk maid, because I'm a real sucker for maid cafes. So, but I mean, I'll take the compliment.
Yeah. Oh, Tech Demo said, "Oh no, that's gonna go to her head."
Yeah, well, I mean, I only have had this costume since March this year, so it's fairly recent. Um, and when we were discussing with my mama what new costume I wanted, I was like, I really like maids. And she's like, okay, so how about like a cyberpunk techwear maid? And I was like, yeah, perfect. Go to town. I gave
You
her literally no direction.
other than just maid. Okay,
Maid.
yes, I like that.
Yeah.
Go. Do you
I
remember
trust
where?
her judgment completely.
Well, I think that's a really good thing that when you have an artist that you can just give, all right, here's the basic framework of what I'm looking for, and that I've only done a couple of commissions. That I had a commission for the intro music that we had at the start of the stream that I commissioned less than a year ago, and I approached the composer ARKHAND, who's actually a past guest from my show, and he's done some work for Fauna, actually, Romelia Nephilis, and a couple others, and was like, okay, this is not the normal BGM stuff that you're usually commissioned for. Can you do a talk show intro? Like, here's one reference of, like, this is my favorite talk show intro. I think it's really good if you make something sort of in the vein of this. And maybe that, I don't know, I don't have much else, sorry. And that he came back with the draft and was like, this is almost exactly what we want. Can we change A, B, and C? And he changed A, B, and C, and we were done. And same thing when I recently did get a piece of art and, again, gave the most rudimentary of guidance. And if you have a good artist, they can take that and, that I think is, I guess, part of what you do as someone looking for who to commission, that you see that the style is close to what you want anyways, and that when there is that good pairing, that you can just let them do what they do.
Yeah, exactly. And I've known Mama for almost 3 years. Like, I know what she's capable of, and I was fully comfortable just letting her do whatever the hell she wanted. And actually, the first concept that she came up with was almost exactly like the design that we have, the final version. So, like, there was nothing that needed to be changed.
Were there any parts that when you saw the design, you didn't know you wanted, but when you saw it, it was like, oh my gosh, thank you for thinking of that for me, that this is what I wanted and didn't even know it?
Probably the hair. I mean, when I debuted, I had like short hair, and I kind of wanted something a little bit different. And she's like, "Okay, well, how about long hair with twin tails?" And I was like, "Yeah, do it."
You mentioned that you really enjoy maids and maid cafes. So where does that interest begin, I suppose? Because it's definitely not a thing really in Western culture, and even in the UK, at least to my understanding, that's not a major thing there either.
I like cute girls.
I mean, fair, very fair. Uh, Perhaps a better question would be, were there any particular series or instances where you saw maids that made that a particular thing? Because obviously there's many different styles and iterations of cute girls. What was it, or where was the maid that made you like maids?
Probably like growing up on the internet and seeing it in like anime and manga and art and things like that, and then realizing, oh, there's like maid cafes that you can go to. And so I think I went to my first maid cafe. It was actually in Thailand. So
Mm.
yeah, so I went to a maid cafe in Thailand, and I was like, oh my god, this is so cute and adorable. I went with my dad though, and he was so depressed.
Oh.
I was having a blast, and my dad is in the corner with his head in his hands, like, please make it stop. And from then on, I was like, man, maids cute. God, I love maids. And then since then, I've been to a maid cafe every time I've gone back to Japan. I've been to a couple maid cafes in Thailand. And yeah, I like maids. I
Any
actually also
favorite ones?
recently. Oh, the ones
and
in Japan.
or favorite cafes, that is?
My favorite maid cafe was probably the Which one did I go to? Probably the at-home cafe in Japan. It's one of the two big ones in Akihabara. You've got at-home cafe and you've got Maid Dreamin'. Those are like the two big name ones, and I went to both. The first one I went to was at-home cafe, and it was probably my favorite one, just because it was a little less busy, um, and they they kind of got to have a bit more time with you. Whereas the Maid
Mm.
Dreamin' one that I went to was absolutely rammed. It felt more like a nightclub. It was very, very busy, but it was still super fun. But you didn't really get a chance to spend any time with the maids. And I'm like, I wanna spend time and hang out with cute girls in cute
Mm.
dresses.
I'm trying. So, and I know you have at least one maid outfit for your VR chat model. I do remember that.
Mhm.
I'm guessing that was one you picked up pretty early on.
No, I grabbed that one. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it's the one that I grabbed pretty recently when I started playing around with Warudo, the new 3D app. But
Mm.
I did make a 3D model of a maid costume before I became a VTuber, and then I edited the model to make it fit my new 3D model after I became a VTuber. So there's that one, but that one I don't think the VOD for that exists anymore because it's like right at the start.
Ah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
And you mentioned using a newer app, and I do know, obviously, I'm not a VTuber myself, but I've seen that there have been, it feels like, especially in the past couple months, that there's been a lot of, I don't know, not necessarily innovation, but there's been a lot of new products in 3D space, both in terms of hardware that Mocapi has become a lot more available, that it rolled out less than a year ago now, but initially had a very small rollout, but is now becoming more available. But there's also been a couple of apps that have come out in just the past few months. And to me as a viewer, I have no comprehension of the differences that I can imagine for the hardware in particular. All right, different trackers, if they're smaller and lighter, easier to work with, that's something. But there's no real way for a viewer to have a good sense for the different apps and their strengths and weaknesses. So do you have any reviews, I suppose, of any of the apps that you've tried recently? Are there any that you're really keeping an eye on? Like, okay, this one's worked really well, or maybe this one's one or two steps off and I want to see them improve?
I mean, there was a couple that I was keeping my eye on. For one is the one that's being made by Baffler, who is working with Zentrea on the 3D app. That one I'm really looking forward to. But then Warudo kind of came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea it was being worked on. It just kind of burst onto the
Yeah, that's
scene,
one of the
and it
names I've seen recently, and like
yeah,
I have no idea what it does, what is different about it.
it is a lot of fun. I really enjoy playing around with it. It is kind of not super different to what I was doing before, though. I still have to use external applications in order to send tracking data to Warudo. Whereas the one that Baffler is working on, I believe it will natively be able to have tracking data inside it. So I'm excited to see how that's going to work. And then there's also one more which I know is being developed, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet.
Oh, nope, please do not break any NDAs on my show. Please do not.
There's no NDA. It's just like I've not seen any announcements, so I don't know if it's like a thing yet. But I'm aware that it's being worked on, and I've been consulted on, what kind of things I want to see in the app. So
Mm.
there's a bunch of different options coming out right now, and all of them have something else, and I'm really excited for all of them.
Well, in that case, let's take that angle of, like I said, I do not really understand as a viewer what the difference for Worldo versus, any other set of hardware or software might be. So, what are the general differences in different apps, and what are the types of things that you look for or are hoping to see innovated in a new app?
The thing that I want to see most is just one app that will be able to pick up all of my tracking in one place. Because right now, my poor PC is exploding because I have to run about 3 different apps just to send the data to one
I
place.
did see a YouTube short recently where someone explained how all the different apps have to connect, and that it's basically this giant loop of, depending on what you're doing, 3 to 7 basically different programs, because they don't all inherently have, the different functionality built in, so they have to pass the information from one to the other to the other.
Exactly. So
Shanche,
I'm
you're
I
absolutely correct. It is Cherry.
yeah, so I'm really looking forward to any apps that can integrate that in one place and do it well as well. Because sometimes,
Mm,
just having an app and then sending data to it is not as simple as people think it is, because every app has its own way of, I guess, translating your
Communicating with
movement.
other things, yeah. That
Yeah,
I
and
know enough about
so
coding to know that I know nothing of coding, and that it's always more complex than you think.
yeah, so I'm really hoping that we get just a one solution. I don't have to have a billion programs sucking up all of my memory in the background, and my poor PC is overheating and dying. And also, it looks good. That's what
Yeah,
I want.
that if somebody can develop a VTubing hub effectively,
Mm,
they're going to make a lot of money, because I feel
yes.
like that's the last, or one of the last big barriers to entry right now, that we are at the point where there's a lot of this technology that is either free or cheap or otherwise easily accessible, that, you know, whether you're using an iPhone for tracking, or Mocapi is, I forget what the exact price point is, but it's under $1,000, that it's relatively approachable in terms of consumer accessibility. But at this point, one of the sticking points for people can become the computer itself, the hardware being able to run these things, because, like you were saying, these programs stack up, and while OBS on its own might not take up a whole bunch of memory, that when you add in all these different things on top of OBS and streaming at high quality, that you're going to need something a bit more powerful.
Yeah.
And that if we can have something that is just more efficient, but also just easier to set up, that it's going to make a big difference, and it will make VTubing even more approachable than it already is.
Yeah, I will say that's one downside currently to 3D and 3D tracking and all these 3D apps is they are not very user friendly. They are not approachable at all. The only reason that I am able to do all of like the crazy things that I do on stream is because I have a history of 3D and VR and I know what I'm doing. But a lot of people have come to me already because they've seen what I do, and they're like, "Hey, I've seen what you do. How did you do that? Because that's crazy." And I like to help people out, so I'll
Have you
explain.
considered
Mhm.
making tutorial content, that, like you were saying for art, that that was a big resource for you, was something that helped you grow a lot, that given your background and your experience in 3D, I think you're in a very unique position where you could make some really good tutorial content that, I'm sure that there's a couple of them floating around right now, but it doesn't feel like there's a ton.
I've done like one or two tutorials more on like the how to find a 3D model for VTubing side of things. I did a YouTube short where I showed people where you could get a 3D model that you had permissions to use for streaming, and it just so happened that all these 3D models, they had been illustrated, like they had been designed by existing Hololive artists. So like that was kind of the catch point. It was like get a really good looking high quality 3D model that was made by a famous artist, and you can get it for less than $70, which is like a million times cheaper than getting like a bespoke live 2D, which is can be like quite
Yeah,
difficult
you
for
hear
new.
some of
Yeah.
the, you know, obviously, if you are a big streamer who has tens of thousands of viewers, and that you have those resources, hell yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Go all out and spend $15,000 on a model and rigging. Like, that's great. And I'm glad that the artists and the riggers are getting those big fish clients and they're getting paid. That's awesome. Obviously, that's not, nor should it be, everyone's price point. So it's really nice when you're able to find, okay, here's something that you can get that is high quality, even if it is a stock model.
Yes, yeah, and I really want more people to know about that because I feel like a lot of people are put off by the prices of like these expensive models because they see like this big VTuber has just dropped a new model and it costs them $10,000 and people are like, oh well, I'll never become a streamer then, I'll never become a VTuber then because I can't afford a big fancy pants model.
Yeah,
Like,
they
no,
think
there's
that the
so many
high-end
options.
price tag is the only price tag, and that's not
Yeah,
the case.
there's so many options, and especially in terms of 3D models. And if you are willing to, watch a couple tutorials to set it up, you're really good, and they're very versatile. They can be modified
Yeah,
really
that they
easily.
can be customized. It's not just,
Mhm.
all right, I'm stuck with the out-of-the-box visual, it cannot be changed, that you can do everything from palette swap the hair and the
Yeah.
outfit to, like you were saying, mods, actual different additions, and that, you know, sort of like with Legos almost, that, you buy these different things from Booth and that you can switch them in and out.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to having a Barbie doll. Like, yeah, you could play with the Barbie doll out of the box and she's got the pink dress and the blonde hair, but also, maybe you don't want a pink dress. You just buy a purple dress for your Barbie and you can play with the Barbie with the purple dress. And you can do that with hairs and shoes and accessories and eye colors, all of those things.
Like, that sounds like a really good YouTube short, especially right now with the hype of the Barbie movie. This is very topical, Reiny.
All right, I'll do it after this.
But do you think that tutorials would be something that you're interested in, or do you prefer to work with people one-on-one that, just because there is a market for something doesn't necessarily mean that, you would enjoy doing it? Do you think that you could potentially enjoy tutorial content, or is that something that just doesn't interest you?
It's not that it doesn't interest me, it's more to do with like I'm also still learning, and so I'm learning from tutorials that are already available, and I just don't think that I could contribute anything new that isn't
Mm,
already, you could all of the information that I have in my brain has already been acquired from a tutorial that is out there. So I tend to more just direct people to tutorials that I use rather than make my own.
that's fair. Yeah. Still, I guess I will say, don't necessarily sell yourself short. That sometimes the art of a tutorial is the compiling and presentation, not necessarily the innovation. So, you know, obviously, you do you and you do what you enjoy and what you think you can do best. But you have a lot of experience, Rainey, in that, if you're able to find a way to just explain something in 60 seconds that might be in a 15-minute video, that's still contributing.
Mhm. I'll think about it.
Yeah. Just an idea. In terms of different, models and pieces, are there any? Is there anything that you've made or that you hope to make, even if you don't, sell anything on Booth nowadays? Are there any pieces that you have considered making just for yourself?
Hmm. For a while before we finally funded the crowdfunding campaign, I genuinely considered just making my new 3D, my new live 2D models outfit in 3D because I really
Mm,
wasn't sure that we were gonna fund the campaign, and I was like preparing myself to have to do the legwork myself. But it ended up getting funded, so thankfully now I don't have to make it myself. So that's really good. And the same with like the little noodle cat model as well. I really wanted that in 3D, and I was fully preparing myself to learn how to make a whole 3D model myself. But then thankfully, it all got funded, so I don't have to do that.
mm. Yeah, it is always nice when things go according to plan, but that you were being practical and you were preparing backups of, okay, you're not guaranteed to hit your crowdfunding goal, and what's the backup plan? How do you make this work? So I'm glad you had the backup, but I'm also glad you
Mm.
didn't have to use it.
Yes, exactly. It just means that, I get something that's a little more higher quality and I get it faster because, I'm not having to do it in between various projects and jobs and other work and risk me completely abandoning it altogether.
I didn't even ask, do you have any pieces of art that you're working on right now? Obviously, if you want to keep things close to the chest, don't need to spoil anything, but are there any works in progress that you are interested in teasing?
I have literally nothing, which is nice for once because usually I'm like super crazy busy in the background working on various projects. Like I do the art for pretty much all of the merch drops. So now that I don't have any projects to work on, it's been really nice.
Low pressure.
Exactly. I can finally, I finally have time to enjoy games again. Whereas
Like
before, like I
Baldur's Gate.
just Yes, exactly. So before I was just so busy with other projects, I didn't have time to do anything else, and it's like it's just depressing.
Mm, I almost wonder if Baldur's Gate can end up being an inspiration of just anything from props to outfits in that world because there's so much there.
I'm hoping that pretty soon. Actually, I think already, um, people are starting to mod Baldur's Gate. So
Oh, that feels
which is
inevitable.
yeah. So
There's
we're
no
gonna have a lot
like
of crazy stuff.
modders are magical beings that are able to do whatever the hell they want because they're wizards, and I have no understanding of what they do, but it's really cool to see, that within a day, a week, all right, somebody's cracked the code, they figured out how to get crazy things, and give them a month and they will turn the world upside down.
Yep, for sure. So I'm excited to mod my game already.
That's going to be interesting, and then eventually people are going to reverse engineer the Twitch integrations and make it so that chat can interact with whatever has been modded, and it will just become a self-perpetuating cycle at that point.
Hell yeah, I'm so excited.
Are there any tools that just, no, sorry. I asked that question already. I'm trying to see if there's a different way for me to angle it. Are there any game genres that haven't had integrations yet that you're hoping to see them eventually start to adopt them?
Probably like the chill farming sims that I like to play, like Stardew Valley and like Animal
Ooh.
Crossing and things like that. I try to think about how you would integrate Twitch integration with those kind of games, especially since like a lot of Twitch integration can be trying to bully or throw off the streamer, which you kind
Yeah,
of don't really want to
which
do for
isn't
like a chill,
yeah, for
comfy.
those specific types of games.
Yeah, so I really don't know. Like,
I can't imagine Nintendo doing any type of Twitch integration on one of their flagship products ever, really. That would probably have to be a modded type of thing. Stardew Valley, on the other hand, perhaps.
maybe, yeah. There might even exist a
Redeem to ruin a turnip. Oh
mod or
no.
something. No! Maybe there's like a mod for it. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Of could there be a mod where anything from just like, can chat be the fish that you're fishing against, and I don't know, if a certain number of
Try to
people
get
type
away.
one in chat, that it becomes more difficult to catch the fish, or I don't
That
know,
could be
that they can spawn in bees.
No!
Like that'd be a good redeem, all right, donate 500 bits, and the next thing that falls out of a tree, or just automatically bees fall out of the nearest tree, run.
Not the bees, no! That would be great, though.
Gosh, now I'm thinking, because I really love Animal Crossing myself, that I've played every version since the GameCube, so I'm trying to think, all right, where would it work? And you're right, that there aren't a ton of obvious answers there just because of the type of game, but hopefully someone will be able to think of something that I think that we are definitely moving towards a world where more games than not will have some type of integration options.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any games that are coming up? Obviously, Baldur's Gate is still very shiny and new, but is there anything that you've been looking forward to other than that?
I've been looking forward to Starfield purely because I know that when Starfield comes out, they're finally gonna get to working on a new Elder Scrolls game.
That's fair. That's very fair. I want this game to come out. so they can make the game that I actually want.
Exactly, yeah. And I probably will still play Starfield. I am looking forward to it. I'm a bit of a Bethesda fangirl now, so I will probably still play Starfield, but I really want a new Elder Scrolls game,
Mm.
please. It's been so long. But
Now,
I actually get like a lot of game recommendations on my TikTok For You page. Like I follow a
mm,
lot of accounts that recommend cozy indie games that are currently being developed. So my wish list on Steam right now is all in development indie cozy games that have been recommended on TikTok, and
ooh, very
I'm
nice.
just like waiting for them
It's
to
been
come out.
it's been really cool to see that genre boom because obviously comfy games and farming simulators aren't new, and even before Animal Crossing they existed, but I feel like Animal Crossing is the one that really broke through and helped popularize things in the
Mm.
West, and that from there the genre has really spiraled a lot, that uh, it has not only become more recognized but just really popular, that there's I remember one of the Nintendo Directs a while back that it was becoming a joke of, all right, how many farming simulators are they showing off today? And it's, think about 5, 6 years ago, there were not many, if any. But now it is the hot new thing. And in in gaming for so many years, it's been all about the actions, the shooters, that it's been very I don't even want to say violent, but perhaps just it's been very action driven. So the concept of
Mm.
there being so much uh, popularity and desire for these comfy games is a really interesting shift. And I don't think that it's necessarily saying that there is any less of a demand for action games, but the fact that perhaps just there's a lot of people that didn't necessarily realize that games could be comfy. And that was sort of part of the gaming market expansion, that a lot of it really began with the Wii, where people who didn't think of themselves as gamers realized that they could be gamers.
Yeah, yeah. I I agree. I think that Animal Crossing has opened up a lot of doors to people, and now the cozy, comfy game genre is really having a resurgence, especially among like console gamers, and also I think a lot of uh, like even just up till fairly recently, gaming was such like a male dominated market, and now you've got all these
Hmm.
comfy cozy games that are drawing in women and people who want a less crazy shooty violent experience. Sometimes you just want to like sit in bed with your Switch and talk to cute animals and farm carrots. It's
And
nice.
I feel like part of it, we were bemoaning getting older, and that, it feels weird to think that certain things are 15, 20 years old now. But at the same time, I think that part of that is why we're seeing this shift, because gaming in and of itself is still really, really new. That in 1985-ish was where you had your first home console, and that we're now having people who grew up with games are now adults with this expendable income, and that
Hmm.
the the gender divide in gaming, that you saw a huge shift, especially with the release of the Wii and the release of, funny enough, the iPhone, that when the App Store and mobile gaming came along, that was huge for demographic shifts. And that
Yep.
not only do you have those folks eventually shifting from mobile to console, but people that grew up with console games that might have been underserved but and still just played what they had accessible are now grown up, and that companies are paying attention, or those folks have grown up and are now making the games that they wish they could play when they were growing up. And that we're seeing all of that, since there is now that literal and figurative maturity in the market. So, a perhaps, getting old isn't all bad for us, because in getting older, that I think folks of our age basically are a lot of direct and indirect reasons for why we are seeing the not only the resurgence or surgence of comfy gaming, but the broadening of genres in gaming as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited for where things are going right now, and I can't wait to curl up in bed with a nice cup of tea. I don't drink tea. I don't like tea. A cup of hot chocolate.
Oh my goodness.
And
Oh, the breaking
I know.
stereotypes right there.
I know. I'm so fake British. I don't like tea. And play all my cozy, comfy farming sims that are coming out hopefully very soon. Please hurry up, please.
Do you have any favorites in the genre?
Favorites that are coming up?
Or just, in general?
Oh, obviously Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley. I have been meaning to check out Harvest Moon because I've never actually played it, but I've heard a lot of good things.
Yeah, I played Harvest Moon like one session at a friend's house. Maybe I rented it from Blockbuster once. Good lord, I just said Blockbuster.
Blockbuster.
But that is also one that I missed that I've played. Like I said, all the Animal Crossings. I've not actually played Stardew Valley, but I know that it is obviously now a mainstay in that genre, and it's one I've been meaning to get around to.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to like the creator of Stardew Valley is working on a new game that I'm really looking forward to. And the people who published, I think, Stardew Valley have also working on their own game as well. And they're both obviously like Stardew Valley inspired, so I will definitely be playing both of those.
Yeah, since Animal Crossing has been 3D in that it's been just a bit higher fidelity graphically, that you can see certain games that have borrowed from it conceptually, but Stardew Valley being a pixel game, it is much easier for other groups to borrow and be very deliberately inspired by them aesthetically, and you do see that a fair bit, I think.
And it's super easy to mod as well, it being like on the PC and it being just like pixel graphics. You don't need to learn how to do 3D. You don't need to jailbreak your Switch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's where all the people who wanted to mod Animal Crossing, but weren't going to be able to jailbreak their Switch or figure out how to crack the Nintendo code, that when they had access to that on PC, because Stardew, I think, was one of the first really mainstream farming simulators after Animal Crossing, that's where all of that creative energy went.
Yeah, exactly.
You do need to get into that game. That it's one that I see people streaming a whole bunch, and that obviously it can't be that difficult. I know that it's got a bit more mechanically than Animal Crossing, but I'm sure I could handle it, and I do need to actually find the time. That's my problem, that I watch a lot of anime and I watch a lot of VTubers, and gaming for me is what has sort of fallen by the wayside a bit.
I was like that for a while, especially with all the projects I was working on in the background. It was like work, projects, no other time for anime, no other time for gaming.
That I still actually have to finish, not Breath of the Wild, beat that, thank goodness. I still have to finish Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh yeah, I finally finished that after a long while.
So that's been one that I was really enjoying that, and I've been a long time Zelda fan, so it's one that I know I will finish. It's just, okay, when do I decide to do that? I wonder if I'm half waiting because I don't want it to end.
I was the same. I didn't play it for a good long while because I didn't want it to end, and then finally I was just like, you know what? It's just
time.
sitting here. I need to do it.
For sure. We've been at it for almost 3 hours now. And I know that you are several hours later than me, so I don't want to keep you too late into the wee hours of the morning. So I have a couple last questions that I asked all my guests, and one of them is, do you have any goals for the rest of the year? That we are, like I said, now into August, actually, so we're definitely in the back half of the year. We've talked about a whole bunch of different things. I've asked a couple times, are there any different concepts or pieces that you're interested in? But do you have any goals for the rest of the year of just, all right, it could be, I want to get this project done, or I want to make one more piece of art or something? Is there anything you really want to do before 2023 ends?
What do I want to do? I think it would be nice to maybe get back into doing some art. I really want to get back into making like custom shorts, because currently I just re-upload my TikToks onto YouTube and it's like whatever.
That's more than I do. I'm very lazy.
Yeah.
I upload the VODs wholesale to YouTube and call it a day.
Yeah, pretty much. I want to get Twitch partner as well. They've been really stingy though, and I really think that I will probably hit 10,000 followers on Twitch before I even get a partner. So
I feel like the team that looks at partner applications in Europe is so much pickier than in North America that I know folks in Europe that applied 13 times and had the numbers before they got in. And I feel like everything from the number of applications to the wait for applications, for everything I've seen for people in Europe, it is so much more difficult than NA. And I have to believe it's just
shit.
different teams looking at them. And I don't, there obviously isn't a different standard on paper, but I think that whoever's behind those desks are just a bit more cutthroat.
Mm.
So I will say, I think that you're actually climbing a slightly steeper mountain, but I do think it is a when, not an if, that you will add a bit more purple to your profile.
Yes, I just want that nice purple check mark to make my ego big and shiny. Yeah, that would be nice as a goal for the end of the year. Like I had some New Year's resolutions, but honestly, I'm trying not to hold myself to them too much because, you know, like I don't want to get disappointed. Keep your expectations low, and you'll never be
Yeah.
disappointed.
Mm. And the last question I ask all my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what is the definition of a VTuber, but different people get different things from VTubing. I've had people say, being a VTuber lets me get in touch with my inner child. Others have said, I don't
Mm.
really identify with my model in a personal way, but I see it as a tool, as an actor, as an entertainer. And I love this tool set, and I would rather use this tool set than be a face cam streamer any day of the week. And those are two very polar different reasons of why people love VTubing, and anything beyond and in between, there is no wrong way to be a VTuber. So for you, Reiny, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
Let me think.
It is
I
a big
think
question, and it's why I asked it at the end.
Damn.
Have to hit them hard before they go.
I think for me, like it's gonna sound really cheesy and like super generic, but it's the truth. So whatever, judge me for it if you want. But it's let me be so much more creative. Like my day job is super boring. I work with spreadsheets all day, every day. I don't get the chance to do anything creative outside of work. And being a VTuber has let me do that. I get to like, you know, it got me back into drawing fan art. It got me back into like using my 3D skills to solve problems and do cool 3D streams. You know, I get to make thumbnails and graphics. I get to talk people and work creatively with other people. I get to do all of the creative things that I wanted to do, but couldn't because like I was working and doing a boring day job or, you know, studying or whatever.
No,
I like it because I get to be creative.
and that makes sense, and it very much is reflective of your content, that the creativity you have, and everything from just the different outfits that you use, the fact that you are so interested in actively looking at different stream integrations or ways to incorporate chat and community involvement in your content, that it is a extremely creative medium for you, that you are not just playing a game, you are not doing simple just chatting, that you are actively making it a creative medium in addition to all that. So that very much makes sense. And that's part of why I asked the question at the end of the show as opposed to at the beginning, because after talking with somebody for a few hours, while I never know exactly how that question will be answered, the answers always make sense.
I see. I see. Yeah, you summed it up pretty well.
So again, Reiny, I cannot thank you enough for being here. This has been so much fun. I hope it's not too late for you. And I know that we have a lot more fun to look forward to from you, from Ojiki, everything from Baldur's Gate to hopefully some concerts in the future. I do actually have one last sort of question. That's, who would you like us to raid?
Oh, who to raid? Ooh.
While she looks around for a raid target, I'll take care of some last housekeeping. Again, thank you to everybody in chat for tuning in, whether you were here from before we went live or came in with one of the raids and stuck around for any amount of time. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, getting to know Reiny a bit better. If you all are interested in more interviews like this, you can follow me here on Twitch and Twitter. It's just Vtuber Talk both places. The VOD of this will be up on YouTube in a week or two. If you missed any of this, you can also see all of my past shows. This is actually episode 117. So there's a lot of fantastic VTubers to see, and I already have my next show scheduled. I sadly cannot promise you any regularity. I do shows about once a week, but try to schedule around my guests. So just follow here on Twitch and Twitter to keep up, and hopefully you had a good time and maybe stop by again sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen this person before, but I like their handle,
Yeah.
ℂ𝕠𝕤𝕪𝕤.
We're gonna raid ℂ𝕠𝕤𝕪𝕤. They're an artist. They do really cute and fun art, and also they're playing Baldur's Gate right now, so double win.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, again, if you are not following Reiny for some absurd reason, please do yourself a favor and follow her. The links are here at the bottom of the screen. They're in the Twitch panels if you're watching live, and they're in the video description if you're on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Yay, I did the content creator thing. And it legitimately, if you're on YouTube and you made it to this point, thank you. Like, you made it to the end. I appreciate it. So, again, whether you are in chat, on YouTube, Reiny, thank you all so, so much. This has been an absolute blast. Can't wait to see what you do next. And again, I just really appreciate your time. So be sure to spam some very fun emotes for ℂ𝕠𝕤𝕪𝕤. Let them know that Reiny sent you. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.